A powerful man stood at the roof staring into space. He stood in his red martial arts gown with a cold expression, like he didn't care about anything or anyone. His name is Dongfang Bubai, the leader of the Sun Moon Divine Cult sect in the martial arts world. Dongfang Bubai's legend epitomized power, betrayal, and enigmatic martial arts mastery, a testament woven into the very fabric of this hallowed legacy. He is a very ruthless man who has the goal of uniting the world together. He is the Grand Master who can defeat 100,000 soldiers in no time. His name is known by people around the dynasty, and he is a feared leader. Anytime he starts a war, blood splatters everywhere with bodies piled up around the warfield. He is a feared warrior. On the day he was going to unite the world together to be under his leadership, the wicked orthodox sect of other clans betrayed him. They decided to unify and kill him and end his reign, which was something he hadn't expected on that particular day. The clans sent their disciples to the warfield to kill Dongfang Bubai. This was something they had been planning for a long time, and they wouldn't want anything to ruin their plans. One of the disciples of the clan stabbed him in his stomach without any remorse. Dongfang Bubai smirked evilly when he got stabbed in the stomach by a disciple of one of the sects. These were people that he had under his wings and protected. They had betrayed him just when he sent his heavenly soldiers out for a mission. Because of what they did, he started massacring the people at the warfield without care and with the sword that was stabbed into his stomach. The people flooded towards him with force to take his life. Thinking they had subdued him because he was kneeling in front of them with the sword in his stomach, they told him to surrender and face the consequences of his evil deeds. They stood there ready to strike again in case he moved, but things took another turn. Dongfang Bubai smiled as he listened to everything they said while kneeling there in front of them. They had turned rebellious just to achieve their goal after he had taken them and brought them to glory. Seeing him still fine and smiling, fear gripped their hearts of the people who had stabbed him and wanted to kill him. They had not expected that he could still move after being stabbed in the stomach. Dongfang Bubai raised his eyes and stared at them with a deadly expression and so much killing intent. He drew out the sword that had been stabbed into his stomach without a trace of pain. He had the aura to kill, to shed blood for their betrayal. As he drew out the sword from his stomach, his blood splattered out from his stomach. His expression wasn't that of pain at all. Seeing that he had stood up and the sword was in his hands, they were shocked and afraid. They didn't understand how he could still be fine with a deep injury in his stomach. And to make matters worse, he looked like he could still fight, which was something they had not expected. And his face didn't look like that of an old man. He looks like a man in his 30s, not 80. Dongfang Bubai is an 80-year-old man, but he looks young. People couldn't help but wonder how he looked this young sometimes. They do know that he uses a martial arts skill to do that, but they cannot find out which skill it is. The sword they had stabbed into his stomach is the Heaven's Pivot, which was a sword that relied on heaven. A sword that they had thought would kill Dongfang Bubai. They saw the sword in Dongfang Bubai's hand had been burned to ashes like it was a piece of paper. They were shocked because it was Heaven's Pivot. Who would have expected that it would turn to ashes in his hands? They were shocked and speechless at the same time. They couldn't believe that the world-famous sword would melt so easily like it was nothing. The fear in their voice gripped their hearts as sweat ran down their face because they knew that what was to come next wasn't good. As they were thinking of what to do next, a man walked up from behind them and told them that he would like to give it a trial to defeat Dongfang Bubai. His name is Linghu Tian, the disciple of the MANHUA sect, the owner of Heaven's Pivot sword that had been burned to ashes by Dongfang Bubai. He steps forward and says he wants to kill the demonic head with his own hands. They were worried about him and reminded him that he had an internal injury and he just lost his sword. So they didn't know if he was going to be okay to fight with Dongfang Bubai in that state. He told them that they don't have to worry because his sword techniques are not picky about weapons, so even if he had lost his initial weapon, he could still fight him with another weapon. He ground against Dongfang Bubai by telling him that his evil deeds were about to end for every disciple that had died fighting him, including the disciples of the mountain set thumbs up. And he told him that even for a single day, they couldn't live under the same heaven with him, because he had caused great chaos to the world, and as far as he is still alive, no one would be at peace. Dongfang Bubai looked at him with a cold, funny expression, because he found his words funny. Dongfang Bubai gave a little laughter and asked who the one that shoulders the heaven was, which provoked Ling Hutian to ask him if he was telling him to indulge in wordplay with him at that moment. Dongfang Bubia's eyes turned white, as his hands, and he started making some incantations. These incantations were no small incantations. They were dangerous incantations that affected the disciples there at the warfield. Ling Hutian heard the incantation that was resounding through the heavens, and then guessed that it was a sound transmission. At the same time, everyone there was screaming in pain because of the voice they were hearing. He stood above them all, standing straight with his hands spread out above the heavens. Below him, the people were screaming out in pain and they were in tears. They wanted it to stop, but it wouldn't stop. They kept on screaming louder, and they tried blocking the sounds by covering their ears, but to no avail. Due to the amount of sound transmission that they were hearing, they started throwing up blood. Because of the incantation, they started turning pale, looking lifeless like their soul has been sucked out, remaining their physical body. They were bleeding in every part of their body. Their eye, ear, nose, mouth, and so on. Seeing that the pain they were facing was unbearable, they knew that the only way to escape such pain and suffering was to kill themselves. So they had to draw out their sword and kill themselves. Some slit their throat, while others stabbed themselves. Death was the best way to escape such a traumatizing situation. They knew that even if they got out of that situation, it would still hunt them. And Dongfang Bubai won't spare them since they served themselves on his doorstep. To be able to fight 100,000 soldiers without much work, they knew he was no ordinary man. People who had already killed themselves could be seen on the battlefield. Some had the sword in their stomach, while others had a slit in their throat. Dongfang Bubai stood before the dead bodies that were piled up on the battlefield. They had killed themselves because they couldn't end the sound transmission between him and the heavens. 100,000 soldiers were wiped out with just an incantation by Dongfang Bubai. Ling Hutian was shocked when he saw what had happened. The bodies of his fellow disciples were all around the battlefield, with blood everywhere and injuries all over his body. The fear and shock on his face were very much visible for anyone to see. He knelt before Dongfang Bubai while coughing out blood. He hadn't expected things to turn out this way. The man that they had come to fight stood before him without much injuries when his body and with an unconcerned expression. Dongfang Bubai had asked him if he knew the reason why he had spared him, but he replied by shunning him and calling him a devil, telling him that he wouldn't tell him the whereabouts of their sect's powerful martial art manual. Hearing what Dongfang Bubai had said, he was very shocked because he had thought that he wanted the martial arts manual. He had thought that that was the reason for his mascara, but he was wrong. He knew that he needed something else. Dongfang Bubai stood before him with a funny expression on his face while he was making gestures with his hands toward his face. Meaning that what he wanted was his face, not the manual, because he wouldn't want such a low-level martial arts manual. He stretched out his hands towards his face and then made him dormant for some time before he was ready to take his face. Doing so, Ling Hutian looked lifeless with the injuries on his body. Ling Hutian could not have both think about his pregnant wife who was at home, someone he would love to go back to. But now it seemed that there was no going back because he knew that this was going to be his last moment. And then his unborn child, whom he had hoped he would teach the martial arts skills he possessed, so that he could grow up to be a fine warrior or martial arts grandmaster. He couldn't help but think of all the things he had missed out on because of this war. He lay down there with blood all over his body and in the piles of dead bodies of his fellow disciples who had sacrificed their life fighting Dongfang Bubai. He knew that this was going to be his last moment, and he didn't know what was to come after his death. The blood splatter was real, the battle was inevitable for that day, and the result was expected. Dongfang Bubai stared at Ling Hutian, who lay on the ground there with injuries all over his body and blood everywhere. His expression was calm, because he knew that the war was over. Relief was all over his face with some scratches on his face from the fight. Ling Hutian stared at Dongfang Bubai with shock written all over his face. He just couldn't understand why there was someone who was so unbeatable, and at the same time he could utilize the power of the heavens. But now he knew why. It was because he was a heavenly demon, a feared heavenly demon. He stared at his smiley face with dizzy eyes, and the sword that was in his hands. He had no remorse in his eyes even standing before so many dead bodies. Dongfang Bubai threw the heaven pivot sword to the floor. To achieve his goal, he created a rumor that Dongfang Bubai is dead, and he was killed by Linghu Tian Manhua's first disciple. Soon, the news spread to all of the whole dynasty that he was dead. Linghu Zhang had a fearful expression on his face. His mouth was sealed with something so he couldn't scream out for help. He had always been finding himself in such a situation for a while now, but had no idea why he always found himself in such a situation. He lay on a flat surface naked, with his hands cuffed to each side of the flat board he is lying on. The same goes for his legs, as they were spread and cuffed. He was sweating profusely because he knew just why exactly he was there. He was about to be castrated. He turned and stared at the man who was about to perform the castration on him. The lights were on and he could his face. He was sweating and wiggling around to know if he could escape, but he was bound tightly by the cuffs on his hands and feet. The knives that will be used for the castration are visible and on the table. This was another thing that had put fear in his body. The weapons had blood on them, which indicates that they had just been used or hadn't been cleaned yet. The old man who was going to castrate him turned and faced him. He looked ugly with only one eye left on his face. He had an evil look on his face as he was about to perform the castration on him. He took one of the castration tools that he was going to use, lifted it, and walked toward Linus Zhang, who was lying on the board where he was going to be castrated by the old, ugly-looking man. He froze when he saw the tool brought close to him and was about to be used. He tried to scream, but to no avail because his mouth was sealed. He tried to break free from the cuffs holding his hands and legs, but it wasn't working. Suddenly, he woke up from sleep because of the dream. He has been having this dream for a while now, countless times, and he has no idea why he kept on having the same dream over and over again. A dream of him being castrated. He hurriedly checked his body to be sure that he was okay. He was sweating crazily and his face was red. The worried expression on his face said it all about how felt. To make sure he was still fine, he had to check his lower part to be sure his manhood was still there. Suddenly, the sect instructor woke up from the noises he was making. Wei Jiaxiong, who is the sect instructor, and also sleeping in the same room with him, was not happy that Zhang had disturbed his sleep because of some dreams. Jiaxiong cursed Zhang and asked him if it was hard to sleep quietly, and calling him a useless bastard. Zhang apologized and complained about his nightmare. Jiaxiong didn't care, and told him that if he made a ruckus again, he would make him sleep outside. Zhang was not happy when he heard what the instructor said, and he couldn't help but think that maybe if you had come from an ordinary family like the other kids, would the instructor Wei Jiaxiong still be treated harshly? The next day, Jiaxiong woke up all the students so that they could start practicing their martial arts skills. He told them to get up and prepare to start their usual practice. But as others were preparing to leave and head to the practice ground, Jiaxiong cited Zhang and told him to wait until later, that he would like to talk to him about something. Zhang put on a worried and shocked expression when Jiaxiong called him out to wait a bit for them to talk. Seeing how worried Zhang was, a seemingly nice and kind fellow disciple approached him and comforted him, telling him everything was going to be fine. His name is Im Cheongyum. He is the strongest on the team and also the kindest they had on the team. As he patted his head and comforted him, the others also did the same. They couldn't help but wonder why the instructor had told Zhang to wait for him. They know that the instructor had always been picking on Zhang, but there was nothing they could do about it. Looking at the fact that Cheongyum was the strongest in the team and also the kindest they had on the team, he couldn't help but be jealous of him. He wished he had as much power as Cheongyum had. After the other students left, their instructor proceeded to ask Zhang the kind of nightmare he had last night, since he had been having trouble sleeping for days now. He asked him this question with a stern expression. Zhang was shocked when he had the question that the instructor had asked him. His expression blackened. He didn't want to tell Jiaxiong what he had dreamt of or been dreaming about lately. He knew it was going to be an embarrassing situation, so he had to make up something and tell Jiaxiong. So he made up something and told Jiaxiong that it was the dream that had been giving him nightmares for days. After listening to everything Zhang said, Wee Jiaxiong called Zhang an idiot for being scared of a dream that doesn't seem serious. Zhang was not happy when he heard what Jiaxiong called him. What he hated the most was being called an idiot. After their discussion, Wee Jiaxiong remembered the selfish, orthodox sects and cursed them. He remembered that they were the ones who said that they would share difficulties no matter what problem they each had. But they did the opposite of what they said, and he indicated that that was the reason Zhang should become strong. Because he knew that they were like a time bomb. They would attack any sect without care and kill them. Zhang, who just finished the dream talk with Jiaxiong, was rushing to class because he was late. Jiaxiong organized the students together and told them that the sparring they were supposed to have that afternoon had been canceled because they would be having a lot of fights tomorrow. So they needed to learn and cultivate the inner technique. The students were speechless when they heard what he said. They thought they would be sparring, which was way more interesting. Some of the students complained that it was going to be a boring teach to just sit and cultivate the martial arts inner qui. They said it out nervously in fear that they didn't know what their instructor would say or do. Wee Jiaxiong, after hearing what one of the students said, asked him if he would like to clean out the Taoist hall or prepare the training ground for tomorrow's event. The student refused immediately and assured him he would do his best to train well. As they all sat down and started cultivating, he started guiding them on what to do to succeed in the inner kiwi cultivation. He told them to learn basic breathing by silently breathing through their nose. He stood up and started walking around the students to make sure that they were doing fine and following the correct cultivation basic steps. He told them to recite the principle of the 6 harmonies. He told them to picture the moment when the heavens and earth in 4 directions become one. He said that he saw Cheongyum doing it correctly. And he couldn't help but praise that he was doing it much better than when he was in his younger days. Suddenly, he turned pale when his eye diverted to that of Zhang, who was sitting at the back of the training ground. Fear was visible in his eyes because he knew that it was the opposite of what he was teaching them. What Zhang was doing was dangerous. Everyone sitting beside Zhang was shocked by what they saw. They had to scoot over to avoid being hurt as they thought. Because of Zhang training and the result, the others had to stop their training to watch. They saw the light that surrounded him as he sat there. They were even more shocked because the light was so bright and blinding. They surrounded him and started asking what that was and what he was doing. To them, he seemed to have done way better at the inner kui cultivation. Jiaxiong immediately screamed out to Zhang angrily to stop the cultivation. Zhang was shocked when he heard him scream out that to him. He didn't know what happened and why he told him to stop the cultivation. Seeing that Zhang was done cultivating and was back to his senses, the other disciples rushed towards him happily to inquire how he had done it. They kept on praising him and asking him. But Zhang was confused. As they were talking, the instructor immediately came up behind Zhang without his knowledge. Zhang turned out of shock to check out who was behind him, and then saw the instructor standing there with a cold, angry expression. The instructor slapped Zhang before he could realize what was happening. Zhang was shocked because he had not expected that the instructor would slap him just after the inner ki cultivation. The instructor sat all the disciples down and started lecturing them angrily. They couldn't help us wonder why he was so angry about the whole situation. They thought that maybe he wasn't happy that Zhang did well. After the training, all the students went to their various quarters, and Zhang, who was not happy with the whole situation, sat on his bed with an unhappy expression. But still, the other students gathered around him praising him and asking him how he had done it. He had no idea of what they were talking about, and he was sweating out of nervousness. He was confused more than they had thought. Seeing that he wasn't saying anything and stated that he had no idea of what had happened, they thought that he was lying and was unhappy and decided to leave him. Zhang could not help but think about the dream he had while cultivating the inner ki. Before he came to his senses, he saw himself sitting in a position. He has no idea what position it is, but he knew that it was him sitting there. He could hear them chanting some words, "Long live Jianghu unification." He could hear them loud and clear, and he could still hear them right now. He could hear them chanting, "Long live the sun moon." He couldn't help but wonder what it meant. At the founders' quarters, Jiaxiong was praised for stopping Zhang on time. Because if he hadn't been stopped on time, no one knew what would have happened to him. He would have been in serious trouble. Jiaxiong, who was sweating, could not help but remember what had happened earlier today. He didn't know what to have happened if he hadn't stopped him from cultivating. If he hadn't stopped him earlier today from cultivating, he probably would have gone berserk. For him to be unable to cultivate basic martial arts skills, they had no idea what skill he was going to learn. He nearly fell into kui deviation. From just learning the basic martial arts skills, 6 harmonies, and not just any other martial arts. And when someone falls into kui deviation, he will shatter into stones. The founder could not help but wonder why someone would fall into kui deviation while training the most basic cultivation techniques, and it was not different from riding a foal, but making it run like a red hare. So for it to be possible, one should possess the same level of energy as a sect leader. Joseong agreed with the founder, but unfortunately, Zhang was born with an extremely small ki center, so he is comparable to a normal person. He could not help but wonder if he had some hidden secrets for him to be able to achieve so much today with his basic martial arts skills. Because they knew that Zhang had a very low ki and had been training for years, suddenly a ki deviation occurred, so they suspected that he had other secrets. The founder thought of it for a second and then froze. He was shocked. He had thought of something but was unable to voice out his thoughts. He couldn't have but remember the oath he had made to Zhang's mother when she was alive. He told her that he was going to protect him from demonic cultists no matter what happened. And this oath has always lived in his heart. But he couldn't have but wonder what was going to happen if he died. Who was going to take care of Zhang and protecting from the demonic cultist? Looking at how weak he is, they couldn't help but wonder what would happen if he stepped into the world. With how weak he was right now, if he kept stepping into the world, let alone the demonic cult, he would die after being exploited by the 9 great sect, 1 great union. And if he is left alone, it would be no different from watching him die. So the founder decided that it was best for Zhang to leave the academy. Joseong was shocked when he heard the conclusion. Then he pleaded with the founder to let him break the news to Zhang. During the comprehensive evaluation day, which takes place once a year, the students gathered at the fighting arena to prepare for the competition. Joseong stood in front of the students and started to tell them that he hoped they used the skills that they had been honing. As each student walked towards the arena, Joseong suddenly stopped Zhang. He told him to wait behind because he would like to talk to him. When the students there heard what he said, they couldn't help but feel pity for him. Joseong sat down in the room silently with Zhang standing behind him. Zhang knew that it was unusual for him to be this silent. Joseong, sitting down there, thought of the great hero who had died at the hands of Dongfang Bubai, Lian Hutian. When he was young, he could only watch him from afar. He was someone he admired. Even when he was on his way to a faraway land, to a place where the demonic cult was located, he remained calm. He didn't know how such a person would give birth to a person with a small ki center like Zhang. He sat there speechless and disappointed. Zhang was worried because he wasn't used to Wei Joseong being silent at times like that. He was used to the scolding, not the silence. He could only stare at Joseong and wonder if he wanted to teach him some secret plan to succeed at the comprehensive evaluation. But the next word Joseong said shocked Zhang. He told him to leave the academy, that martial art was not for him. Joseong didn't want Zhang to misunderstand him and boldly told him that he had no martial art talent. Zhang was not happy when he heard that. He was angry and folded his fist with anger. He first thought was that Joseong took so long to tell him this. His father was the senior brother of the revival sect of MANHUA, so it was more reason for him to stay there. Joseong walked towards and tapped his shoulder, telling him that it was best he becomes a high government official and leave martial arts. He told him to take his past as S lesson and leave the sect. Zhang was smarter than most of the disciples in the sect. Zhang then realized that his eldest brother never hated him, although he acted like he did. He then rejected the offer of leaving the academy. He said he would give the evaluation a trial. Joseong was shocked when he heard it, and looked at Zhang. He then saw that the blood of a hero does run in his blood. Zhang turned mad left to the fighting arena. Joseong couldn't help but be proud of Zhang. He was nearly disappointed when he heard he would give it a trial. But later he heard it was the evaluation. He felt relived. He is indeed the son of Lian Hutian. At the comprehensive evaluation, Joseong announced to the students that henceforth they will be conducting the year comprehensive evaluation, which is done once a year. He told them to fight to the best of their ability to repay the kindness that the founder has given to them. The disciples listened attentively to the instructions given by Wei Jiaxiong. They listened with a serious expression. They knew that they will be the one to lead MANHUA revival sect in the future. So the evaluation matters. They stood there, lined up listening to him while Jiaxiong stood at the front of the arena. The founder watched from the top as the students replied to Jiaxiong. Suddenly, his stopped at Zhang, who stood there with a cold expression. He wondered if the talking between him and Jiaxiong had gone wrong or futile. He turned to Jiaxiong and asked him what had happened, and if the discussion between him and Zhang didn't go as planned. Jiaxiong apologized and blamed himself. He told the founder that he tried to persuade him, but Zhang refused. The founder turned to Zhang again. He remembered his eldest brother who was stubborn like him. He signed in disbelief. Of all things he had inherited from his father, it wasn't his strength but his stubbornness. It was such a pity that Zhang's mother heard the news about the death of Ling Hutian and couldn't take the shock. She was a very beautiful woman that any man would want to have. She was the Empress of Plum Blossom, Lim Yeren. Capable of subduing thousands of men with her showmanship, she was the sex pride. Her beauty rivaled that of the celestial maiden. He had fallen in love with her before, but things didn't work out for them. Then she married his brother. But because of Dongfang Bubai and the war, she couldn't bear the thought that Ling Hutian was dead and died after giving birth to Zhang, and made a promise to her to keep Zhang safe from demonic hands. Jiaxiong began to call the disciples names for them to step forward. He told them that they will begin the evaluation regardless of their rank in martial art. He called out the student's name, and each student called out steps forward at the fighting arena. The founder remembered when other sect tried to take the child from him. They didn't want such a powerhouse to be in the MANHUA revival sect. But at the end, he was a child lacking in martial art. He had no martial skills. He just took care of him because of the oath he took to protect him. As the names were called out, the students complied by stepping out. But when it got to the last name, the founder stopped Jiaxiong from calling the last name. He wanted to do it himself. He did something suddenly that made the students look up with amazement. He flew from the top he was watching them from and landed in front of the students who were looking at him with a surprised expression. He called the last name Lianhu Zhang and told him that he would fight Im Cheong-yum. When they heard the pairing, Jiaxiong was shocked. Cheong-yum was the strongest of all the students, and Zhang was the weakest with no martial arts skills. When Zhang heard who he was paired with, he was shocked because he hadn't expected that he would be paired with Cheong-yum. Cheong-yum was the strongest, and him the weakest. The other students were also shocked, and Zhang was told to walk up to the stage to begin the evaluation. When the sect founder listened to Jiaxiong's story of Zhang, he knew that it was terminal lucidity. A situation whereby a person is in a subconscious state, the person can regain his energy while he is on the verge of death. In the case of martial artist, he brings out his strongest technique in a semi-conscious state before facing a beautiful death. And the typical example was that of his brother Ling Hutian, who killed Dongfang Bubai. When Im Cheong-yum heard that his opponent was Zhang, he was shocked. The thought of sparring with someone as weak as Zhang would do him no good. Jiaxiong wondered if the reason the master had paired the two was because he wanted to pressure Zhang to leave the academy, and the only way to do that was to pair him with Cheong-yum. He wants to instill an unbearable sense of frustration in Lianhu Zhang. Im Cheong-yum's gaze turned cold as he stood at the fighting ring. Zhang was scared out of his wit when he looks at him. He knew walking into the ring was asking for a free beating. Cheong-yum was not happy when he saw that Zhang was composed and not acting scared. Then his mind wandered to the fact that the founder and instructor must have given him a secret plan to win the evaluation. He smiled coldly when he thought of that. Calling him the son of the great hero who is different from him, the son of a lowly farmer. Cheong-yum's words had so much hatred rooted in them, and using his background as a means to insult Zhang. Zhang was speechless when he heard what he said. He hadn't expected that from his senior brother, Cheong-yum. He could feel the trace of hatred in his words and his gaze. After the both stood at the stage, Jiaxiong declared that the fight should start. Cheong-yum decided to make his first move and told Zhang to give it a shot in the fight. His fight against Zhang didn't look like sparring at all, because it was filled with hatred. He didn't give Zhang the space to attack. When Zhang tried running, he attacked him, leaving him shocked. His next attack shocked the instructor because it was the dual shadow fist. He attacked Zhang with all his might without stopping. Zhang, who was being hit, was finding it hard to stand back up again and retaliate. Zhang could only make sounds that he was in pain. And also he couldn't fight, so he could only block the attack that was thrown at him. Even though he was getting tired and was in so much pain, Chongyum smiled evilly while beating Zhang up. He recounted how he has always hated Zhang. Whenever he looks at him, he couldn't help but remember his past. Although they were poor, they were happy, but kids of wealthy people like them wouldn't let them live in peace. Zhang reminds him of the son of the wealthy family who wouldn't let them live in peace and troubled his parents to death for his pleasure. While the sparring was ongoing, Jia and the sect master detected a very strong killing intent coming from Cheongyum, which was unexpected in a duel that was just supposed to evaluate their skills. Jia got worried when he noticed that the fight was taking another turn. Cheongyum gave Zhang one final attack at his chest that sent him flying to the ground far from him. He was all beaten up and injured and coughed out blood. Jia screamed out Zhang's name and ran towards him to check out on him. The students standing there were all shocked when they saw him all battered up and injured. Jia knew that as students during sparring, they are warned to not put killing intent to their attack unless the one fighting is wicked. He turned and stared at Cheongyum, who was standing there without remorse of what he had done. He was looking cold and had a look of mockery on his face. Jia wanted to ask him why he had fought like that, but Cheongyum's next word made him speechless. He told him he fought based on the basic sparring rules. When he heard what he used as a defense, Jia was shocked. As he turned to Cheongyum to say a word, Zhang, who was in his arms, coughed out blood, which scared Jia. Then shouted to the other disciples to quickly bring the medicine to feed Zhang. The students rushed and brought the medicine to the instructor. They had a worried expression on their faces. They couldn't believe that Cheongyum had beaten up like that, knowing that he wasn't as talented as him. As he was about to feed him the medicine, Zhang opened his eye and stared at Jia in a confused manner and asked him what he was doing with his red, cold eye. Jia paused what he was about to do and stared at Zhang for a while in shock before he came back to his senses when he heard his next question. Jia was shocked when he saw him open his eye. He looked fine and cold at the same time. His gaze were relaxed, unlike the usual Zhang. But then, he couldn't help but wonder if the fight between him and Cheongyum had hurt his brain. Why would he ask if their believers were safe? And who exactly was he talking about? Jia had no idea of what Zhang was talking about. Zhang lay down on the floor, wondering what him, the greatest Invincible of the East, was doing lying down on the floor like that. He is Dongfang Bubai, so why would the great him be laying that way on the floor? Zhang turned to Jia, who was staring at him, and wondered who he was because he looked like a gorilla. He asked him where he was and asked Jia who he was. Jia wondered if Zhang had lost his memory because he hit his head on the floor. Then he concluded that he hit his head on the floor because of how he was acting. Zhang decided to look around him and noticed he was on a sparring platform and wondered why. When he heard that he was beaten up while sparring during the evaluation, he questioned how he could be beaten up as the Invincible of the East. And he even coughed out blood because of the fight. Suddenly, Jia called South his name and asked if he really hit his head. Because of the name, he was called memories of who he was flooded into him. Starting from when he was a baby to the sparring and his daily life, he was shocked who memories of someone else flooded into his head. Then it occurred to him that he wasn't Lianhu Tian, but he was his son Lianhu Zhang. He was even more shocked. Because this was not the plan, then he knew that something had gone wrong. He sat there on the floor, speechless. Then he heard that he had lost the fight, that he should get down from the stage so that others can continue. Zhang was surprised when he heard that. He smirked with a cold, deadly gaze. How could he Dongfang Bubai lose in a fight? And he finds it funny that he lost in a fight. He was the Invincible of the East, so losing a fight was not in his book. Jia was shocked when he saw how he was acting, like an old man. He was even talking like an old man, and another thing that shocked him was that he was nibbling and acting different than usual. It was unlike him. Cheongyum was shocked to see Zhang was fine, and had told him to continue to guide him. He was like a totally different person. The change in his personality was also shocking, because he just displayed the personality of an old man. He made mockery of him while cover it with meaningless excuse that he couldn't control his power. That was why he had fought with him like that. He thought that it would anger Zhang if he said a word like that, but Zhang didn't react as he expected, but played his card cool. Zhang provocatively reminded him that his dual shadow fist has no effect on him since he was still fine and standing. So he would still be able to continue the fight. Zhang exposed him by telling him he would like to see the martial art he was hiding. Since it was a sparring, they should use everything they had learned and not hide anything. Zhang told Qiangyum to fight him with the Hua Essence Fist, since he has been learning that secretly. Jiaxiong was shocked when he heard Zhang said. His expression turned cold and dangerous. Because Qiangyum had learned the Hua Essence Fist without his permission or the master's permission. Mount Hua was well known for the sword techniques. But before learning the sword techniques, one must first of all learn the Hua Essence Fist. However, it can only be taught to those the master has approved and not just anyone. He stared at Qiangyum with cold expression. He learned the Hua Essence Fist without the master's permission, which was against the sect rule, and he needs to be punished for it. Qiangyum tried to defend himself, saying that he had seen the eldest brother practicing it at midnight. Zhang knew he was lying, but just ignored him. Jiaxiong tried to get Qiangyum to say the truth by hitting him, but was suddenly stopped by the sect master. The sect master laughed and walked to the stage where they were standing. He was happy that Qiangyum has learned the skill, and that he decided to give him special permission to learn it. They were shocked when the sect master had said. The instructor was shocked that the master divided to give him a special permission to learn the Hua Essence Fist. The instructor turned to where Zhang was standing worriedly because he knew that they had just sparred, and he was injured, but Zhang comforted him by saying something shocking to him. Zhang told him to go down, that he would end the fight quick before he knows it. And he will be fine, so there was nothing much for him to be worried about. When the instructor had what he said, he was shocked because he was speaking like an old man, and he was acting like he had dual personalities also. It was unlike him because he knew that Zhang was weak and had no martial art skill. Qiangyum was shocked when he heard what Zhang had said and thought that he had a problem with his brain. He was annoyed because of what he said. And then they declared that they should resume the fighting. Zhang stood where he was and made a come-on gesture with his hands towards Qiangyum. Qiangyum was angry when he saw what he did and how he looked calm like it wasn't a serious fight. He was provoked by what Zhang did and then told him that he would make him regret saying those words, and he is also going to wipe the arrogance off his face. He was not happy he was behaving less concerned about the fight, but Qiangyum had confidence in his fight with Zhang. He made his first move on being, but he dodged the attack calmly. To Qiangyum, the higher he jumps, the greater power of his flying fist. But to Zhang, the higher one jumps, the more vulnerability they expose. Qiangyum was shocked when Zhang dodged his attack. It was a blow to his ego. He got angry when he thought of that. He turned to make another attack on him, but received a surprise attack from Zhang. Zhang gave him a kick in between his legs, which shocked him, because he hadn't expected that. Of all places Zhang had to attack, it was his manhood area. It was an ultimate defeat for any man, and no standing up for a while. Qiangyum called Zhang shameless for using such attack in him. He stood at a place for a while to let the pain reduce. Zhang taunted Qiangyum by questioning his desire to engage in a confrontation despite the evident strength gap. Unyielding, Qiangyum flaunted his power in an attempt to incite Zhang. Zhang forcefully propelled Qiangyum backward with a swift movement of his hands, causing him to crash onto the ground. Internally, the sect founder couldn't help but commend Zhang. Despite lacking great physical strength, Zhang exhibited remarkable speed and agility. Fueled by surprise and anger at Zhang's unexpected speed and strength, Qiangyum, in a fit of rage, labeled Zhang as an asshole. Zhang echoed Qiangyum's earlier words, emphasizing that if he couldn't control his own strength, what options did he really have? Qiangyum's face flushed with a mixture of anger and embarrassment as he vehemently declared his intention to end Zhang's existence, stating that he had endured enough and it was time to conclude it all. Zhang observed with a solemn expression as Qiangyum, fueled by rage, unleashed the formidable essence of Hua Fist, emanating a palpable aura of deadly intent. Inquiring if fear had gripped Zhang, Qiangyum received no verbal response. Undeterred, he asserted that it was too late, confidently declaring his intent to deliver a fatal blow. In response, Zhang calmly countered, stating that they would soon find out if Cheongyum could truly fulfill his claim of ending him with a single strike. As Cheongyum poised for an imminent attack, he challenged Jong to evade the impending blow, laying down the gauntlet in the impending confrontation. Internally, Jong grappled with the decision of whether to continue avoiding Cheongyum's attacks and retaliating or allowing himself to be struck to prevent any potential misunderstandings. Jong's initial thoughts centered on the realization that if he were in his original body, he could have effortlessly dispatched Cheongyum with a single swift strike, likening it to crushing an ant before it could make contact. Despite inhabiting a seemingly feeble form, he remained confident in his ability to achieve the same outcome. Choosing to confront Cheongyum directly, Jong braced himself for the impending assault. The instructor called out, questioning Jong's decision to face the attack head-on. As Jong prepared to step onto the sparring ground, the sect master intervened, intrigued by what actions Jong might take in the face of the challenge. Cheongyum initiated the attack, yet Jong stood motionless, observing without flinching. A collective surprise rippled through the onlookers as Jong effortlessly countered Cheongyum's assault without sustaining any visible injuries, defying their expectations. Cheongyum, taken aback, suspected that Jong possessed knowledge about the Hua Essence Fist and inquired about his understanding of it. Jong calmly revealed that he hadn't even utilized 50% of the Hua Essence Fist, leaving everyone astonished once again. Elaborating on his strategy, Jong explained the significance of timing in unleashing the Hua Essence Fist, likening it to the plum blossom blooming at its peak. Only when the fist is unleashed during its unrestrained and robust state can its power truly be harnessed. Mastery, he claimed, comes with an understanding akin to recognizing the fragrance of a flower. The shock persisted among the spectators, prompting doubts about Jong's alleged status as the weakest in the sect. As Jong stood unscathed in the ring, onlookers stared in amazement. The sect founder couldn't help but marvel inwardly at the strength of the blossoming plum scent, impressed by Jong's unexpected prowess. Cheongyum gazed at Jong in disbelief, questioning when he had acquired the knowledge of the Hua Essence Fist. Jong, looking upward, pondered for a moment before concluding that he couldn't recall. It had been a long time ago. Deciding to dispense with small talk, Jong urged them to conclude the fight once and for all, causing Cheongyum to freeze at his words. Shocked, Cheongyum stared at Jong when he declared that if he wouldn't attack, Lianghu Jong would. Jong unleashed the plum blossom attack, only to vanish before executing the move, leaving Cheongyum even more astonished. Suddenly reappearing behind Cheongyum, Jong executed the true move of the Hua Essence Fist, revealing that the flower was merely a distraction. Observing the unexpected spectacle, onlookers among the disciples couldn't believe they were witnessing such a remarkable fight, with some even expressing their emotions through tears and exclamations. After Jong's successful strike, Cheongyum crumpled to the ground, pondering how Jong had managed to defeat him. Post-fight, Jong mockingly bowed and expressed gratitude to Cheongyum for his teachings. A profound silence enveloped the surroundings as spectators needed time to process what they had just witnessed. Disciples surrounded Jong at the quarters, bombarding him with questions about private lessons and his techniques. Jong claimed luck, though many doubted his explanation. Jong questioned why he found himself in Lianghu Zhang's body instead of Lianghu Tian's, considering the latter's apparent weakness. Contemplating the situation, Jong wondered if Dongfang Bubai, the great practitioner of the soul-transferring Grand Act, had failed in his attempt. The soul-transferring Grand Act, a legendary demonic practice, allows one to fully transfer souls and control the target's body. Jong was certain that 14 years ago, he had manipulated Lianghu Tian's body to destroy his own kind and steal his identity. He selected Lianghu Tian's body based on its appearance, aiming to enhance the shock factor when revealing the truth in the future. Because of that, he gave Lianghu Tian the honor of being the great hero who saved the world by killing Dongfang Bubai. Jong clarified that his actions were designed to infiltrate and destroy the orthodox sect from within, while masquerading as Lianghu Tian, as retribution for betraying the Sun Moon Divine cult. The sect instructor sought a meeting with the sect master in his quarters to discuss the unauthorized acquisition of the Hua Essence by Cheongyum and Jong. Upon hearing the report, the sect master agreed with Jiaxiong, but instructed him to refrain from intervening with the two disciples, emphasizing that they were destined to lead the sect in the future. The sect master proposed a strategy of collective denial, suggesting that they should pretend the incident never occurred, and instead foster the growth of the two young disciples. On the contrary, Jong found himself unable to sleep, haunted by unresolved questions about potential betrayals or complications during the soul transfer process. Mastering the soul-transferring grand art proved challenging for Zhang, leading him into a state of key deviation, a formidable obstacle in his pursuit. Zhang pondered whether the unfolding events were a deliberate trap, especially considering the coincidental opportunity for world domination that lay before him. Despite suspicions, Zhang trusted Zhang Longyun, the loyal subordinate who had discovered and presented the grand art to him. Zhang couldn't shake his curiosity about how the situation had unfolded, leaving him in a state of contemplation. He wondered if, during the breakdown of Liang Hutian's soul and Dongfang Bubai's attempted suicide, someone had seized the opportunity to kill Liang Hutian's now vacant body. The fundamental principle of the soul-transferring grand art dictated that the target must be alive. The heart must be beating, establishing an iron rule that Zhang grappled with as he sought answers to his lingering questions. At that time, the only living individuals of significance were him and Liang Hutian. Sensing a conspiracy but unable to gather concrete evidence, Zhang's recurring dreams over the past 4 days intensified his suspicions. The vivid imagery included being taken from the Korean peninsula, enduring a brutal incident involving his genitals, and the moment he ascended as the leader of the Sun Moon Divine Cult. Coincidentally, upon turning 15, Dongfang Bubai's persona within him awakened, leaving Zhang convinced that more than mere chance was at play. The following day, the instructor instructed everyone to assemble in the training hall for a day focused on individual training. Students eagerly rushed out of their quarters toward the designated training hall. Zhang attempted to sneak out, but the instructor intercepted him, directing him to wait in front of the dormitory for a conversation after the instructor visited the infirmary. In the infirmary, the instructor couldn't help but question Cheongyum about his actions, emphasizing that martial arts are taught to disciples when they are deemed ready. Expressing empathy for Cheongyum's impatience due to poverty, the instructor acknowledged Liang Hutian's belief in a brighter future and hoped to instill that gratitude in junior disciples. Acknowledging the breach of institution rules, the instructor warned Cheongyum of impending consequences once he awakened. Despite the admonishment, the instructor conveyed a hope that Cheongyum would understand the motivation behind the actions and wished him a speedy recovery. Upon the instructor's departure, Cheongyum dismissed his words as nonsense, expressing disbelief in the allegations. He questioned the inconsistency of the institution's response when he used the essence fist, noting their silence despite apparent displeasure. Cheongyum firmly concluded that Zhang had covertly provided him with a manual and personally instructed him in the Hua essence fist. He resolved not to be deceived by sweet words again. Subsequently, he decided to chart his own course and trust no one henceforth. Back at the dormitory, the instructor queried Zhang about how he had acquired knowledge of the Hua essence fist. Speechless and unsure how to respond, Zhang grappled with the dilemma, suppressing the urge to vent his frustration on his elder brother. Finally, he claimed to have observed Cheongyum practicing the technique. Jaseong eyed him suspiciously, noting the improper wrapping of Zhang's bandage. Despite the suspicion, Jaseong ignored him and the look down at his bandage which was wrapped wrongly, so he helped him in properly dressing the bandage. Memories from Zhang's childhood flooded back, a recollection that Dongfang Bubai found somewhat annoying but not entirely unwelcome. Assessing his current physical state, Zhang resolved to leverage the situation and grow stronger. The instructor, noticing Zhang's inadequate attire, playfully knocked him on the head. Zhang was so angry when Jaseong knocked him on his head. He was Dongfang Bubai, and why would he be knocked? Pointing to the disheveled dress, the instructor questioned Zhang about his improper attire. Walking over to Zhang, he took the initiative to help him fix his dress, demonstrating both care and guidance. Zhang reflected on the fact that he had never dressed himself, as his maids had attended to such tasks during his time as Bubai in the past. The instructor inquired if Zhang was feeling unwell following the sparring session the previous day. Agreeing, Zhang concocted fictitious body pains to avoid further questioning from the instructor. Observing Zhang's attempt to evade discussion, the instructor assured him that they could address the matter when he felt better. Instructing Zhang to resume regular training, the instructor's apparent oversight of the Hua Essence Fist discussion relieved Zhang. Exiting to the training ground, Zhang resolved that rigorous training was the key to regaining his strength. The sect master instructed Jaseong to let the transgression of the children pass, acknowledging their breach of sect rules. Aware of the wrongdoing, the sect master justified the leniency, citing the need for new blood, especially since MANHUA had already fallen. Pointing out the presence of new disciples, the sect master asserted that the revival of MANHUA sect had entered a stable phase. Emphasizing that the children represented the hope of the sect, the sect master advocated for granting them another chance, considering the future of the sect. The instructor, understanding the sect master's perspective, agreed with the decision and concluded that he comprehended the importance of the sect's future. Joseong grasped the sect master's perspective and suggested that, to prevent a recurrence, they could consider amending the sect rules. The master concurred, stating that they should observe how the sect evolves in the future. Jong took on the role of an instructor, demonstrating martial art postures to fellow students, while the sect master and instructor observed from the top of the quarters. In the woods, echoes of martial arts training resonated through the air. The resounding echoes of martial arts practice reverberated through the heart of the forest, creating an eerie symphony that had the power to startle and send birds fluttering away in fear. Jong found himself amidst the dense woods, honing his martial arts prowess. His fists collided with the unyielding surface of a large rock situated in the heart of the forest, as he dedicated himself to perfecting his skills. Bathed in a radiant light, he sweated profusely, each droplet accentuated by the ethereal glow. The luminous aura heightened the tangible intensity of his exertion, creating a surreal and vivid scene. In the embrace of radiant light, Jong delivered a forceful punch to the formidable, unyielding rock. Hitting the large rock, blood splattered on his hand, creating a stark contrast against the rugged surface and his skin. After taking a break, he realized his body wasn't as strong as he thought. It felt weak and useless, a revelation that took him by surprise. Helplessly, Jong accused his present body of disgracing his former name, the Invincible of the East. Nevertheless, he retained a wealth of martial arts skills in his mind. It was only his wretched body that failed to match. Jong contemplates the wretched state of his body, musing that in Murim, it wouldn't be surprising if he met an untimely demise. Despite his frail body, Jong draws strength from his vast martial arts, knowledge and combat experience accumulated in fierce battles. Determined, Jong dedicates himself to rigorous training, aspiring to expand his humble ki center. As the saying goes, the end justifies the means. With a plethora of martial arts knowledge, Jong simply needs to select the one that suits his body best. After consistently employing the Hua Essence Fist, Jong reached the realization that the current body he inhabited was not entirely suitable for Mount Hua cultivation techniques. Acknowledging the challenges of achieving complete mastery and the unknown side effects associated with certain cultivation methods, some of which even involved potential eunuch status. Considering his options, Jong explored martial arts from an unorthodox sect that prioritized the harmony of yin and yang as its core value. Seating himself, he commenced the Taiji Chi cultivation technique, the fundamental cultivation art of the Wudang sect. Immersed in concentration during cultivation, a radiant light enveloped Jong. However, as he progressed in his Taiji cultivation, he unexpectedly encountered a state of ki deviation. Troubled by this development, Jong was shocked to confront the complications of ki deviation. To overcome this challenge, he realized that maintaining harmony between yin and yang was crucial. The Wudang sect cultivation method alone was insufficient for achieving this. Incorporating the triple yin ki art and absorption technique became necessary to address the deviation. By integrating these techniques, Jong successfully restored harmony between the yin and yang energies, overcoming the obstacle of ki deviation in his cultivation journey. Jong successfully mitigated the ki deviation in his cultivation. His inner ki stabilized, completing 5 circulations, a feat he found almost unbelievable. Jong attributed his accomplishment to the teachings of the Kong Tong sect, a crucial factor in reaching this milestone. In his past life, when he attained the unrestrained realm, he could manipulate yin and yang ki at will. Unexpectedly, thanks to the Taiji Ki technique, Jong experienced a natural rise in his yang, a phenomenon he hadn't anticipated in his current life. Eager to test his newfound cultivation skills, Jong decided to exert his full force, believing that an attacker should be at their peak. Adopting the persona of Dongfang Bubai, Jong believed that nothing was impossible for him to achieve. Contemplating the possibilities, Jong concluded that there might be hidden secrets within his seemingly failed and pathetic current body, secrets that even Dongfang Bubai, the old man, might not be aware of. The following day at the training ground, disciples engaged in practice and sparring, with Jong consistently emerging victorious. The instructor announced Jong as the winner in every sparring match, and then directed the disciples to assemble in a line. Impressed by Jong's performance, the founder couldn't help but hold him in high regard, noting that even after defeating all his senior brothers single-handedly, Jong showed no signs of exhaustion. Within a brief time frame, the founder observed a remarkable transformation in the youngest disciples, both in terms of their abilities and the quantity of inner ki they now possessed. Contemplating Zhang's situation, the founder pondered the impurity of his ki, wondering if it was a side effect resulting from his rapid and unprecedented growth. Occasionally sensing an energy different from that of Manhwa sect emanating from Zhang, the founder noted that while different, it was not as unconventional as that of the wicked unorthodox sect. Comparing Zhang to his energetic father, the founder marveled at how Zhang possessed such unique energy as a child who had never ventured beyond their surroundings. Standing in front of the Hua flower, the sect master contemplated the growing power of Zhang and the need for talented individuals in the sect. He held on to the hope that one day they would return to the Mount Hua they yearned for. Observing the children as they laughed and interacted, witnessing their growth, the master perceived the resurgence of Mount Hua sect and the flourishing of talent within the sect's ranks. The master gazed upon the disciples with pride, especially Zhang, who was steadily maturing into a fine young man. The determined expression on Zhang's face conveyed his clear aspiration. He was destined to lead the revival of Mount Hua sect. The potent aura emanating from him indicated that Zhang's strength would play a pivotal role in guiding the Mount Hua sect. The disciples, under Zhang's leadership, were poised to lead Mount Hua sect to glory and restore its reputation after the betrayals by other sects. Reflecting on the past briefly, the master consciously shifted his focus from historical grievances and directed his thoughts towards the promising future. The growth of Mount Hua sect mirrored the resilience of the plum blossom flower, symbolizing endurance, renewal, and the sect's unwavering determination. Reflecting on the past, the founder's mind wandered back to his days at another sect. Contemplating this period, he couldn't help but acknowledge that it was during this time that they began using martial arts from other sects. The decision to adopt these martial arts was made to safeguard the revival of Mount Hua sect, even though it carried hidden risks that could potentially shake the foundation of their sect. A critical aspect was avoiding harassment from numerous sects in Shaanxi, prompting them to relocate to the Kingdom of Wu, a place devoid of any reputable sects but conveniently located near the capital, leading to ridicule as government dogs. Just as the sect master was about to discuss matters with Zhang, Jiaxiong interrupted, advising Zhang not to let his guard down and to continue advancing. Zhang respectfully bowed in response, assuring Jiaxiong that he would not disappoint. The announcement of a monthly holiday resulted in the disciples dispersing, looking forward to the break. The founder extended an invitation to the instructor to join them on the holiday. Jiaxiong hesitated, expressing concern about setting a good example for the juniors if Zhang remained behind, providing an additional reason for him to go. Surprised, the sect master inquired about Zhang's holiday plans. The instructor confirmed Zhang's decision to stay behind, citing his dedication to training. Finding it admirable, the founder decided to reward the instructor with a meal. The sect master agreed, pledging to get Zhang a gift upon his return. The instructor inquired about the duration of the journey. The founder informed him it would be until tomorrow morning, emphasizing the need for him to take care of the sect in their absence. Curious about Zhang's well-being, the founder went to check on him, assuming he was training alone in his quarters. To his surprise, Zhang was not in his room, prompting the founder to consider other possible locations. Searching inside the room more thoroughly, Zhang was nowhere to be found. Expanding the search to other areas yielded no results, leaving the founder standing in the middle of the compound, contemplating other potential locations. Noticing an elder of Mount Hua sect tidying the surroundings, the founder approached to gather information. He inquired if the elder had seen any of the youngest disciples around. The elder began to provide the information the founder sought. Jiaxiong was taken aback upon hearing that they were heading to the brothel based on the information he received from the elder. He questioned whether he had misheard, but the old man affirmed that they were indeed going to the brothel. Convinced by the confirmation, Jiaxiong left to find Zhang at the brothel, acknowledging that Zhang was no longer a kid and could make his own choices. Contemplating Zhang's actions, Jiaxiong also considered the incident with Qiangyum, realizing there was no guarantee that Zhang wouldn't fall into a similar situation. Despite these concerns, Jiaxiong noted that Zhang had recently made significant progress and didn't seem the type to easily indulge in laziness. The students strolled towards the brothel, engaging in conversation along the way. Zhang was displeased that they had abandoned training for self-indulgence. He understood that the headquarters of the 9 great sects were often situated in secluded mountainous areas to deter such distractions. One of his senior brothers playfully remarked that Zhang's discontent might be due to the compliments he was receiving. Zhang chose to ignore his senior brother's comment, who then teased him about his choice of clothing. When suggested to wear a shinier jacket, Zhang declined, preferring to stick with what he was wearing. The others admitted he looked handsome. His senior brother humorously reminded him of a past rejection by Lady Huiwan, a courtesan at the brothel, after he wrote her a love letter. Zhang rejected the offer to change his clothes, asserting his preference. They acknowledged his handsomeness. Reminded of the rejection, Zhang felt ashamed, convincing himself that Lianghu Zhang wrote the love letter, not Dongfang Bubai. Huiwan was a courtesan of the Pearl Pourboire Pavilion, known for her beauty and elegance. Zhang claimed he merely picked up something for the lady, denying any romantic intentions. His senior brother informed him they were all going to the same brothel, causing Zhang's shock. He suggested going elsewhere, but they refused. On their way, various beautiful women tried to entice them to visit their brothels, but they remained focused on their destination. Another lady approached them, inviting them to visit her brothel, but Zhang concluded they had work to do and might consider it later. Zhang cynically thought that his senior brother's dignified pretense might not extend to training situations. Arriving at the brothel, Zhang was surprised by its appearance and questioned whether it was the pavilion. His companions reassured him to wait until they were inside. Upon entering, Zhang was pleasantly surprised by the beauty of the interior. They were halted by imposing guards who appeared intimidating. One of the senior brothers requested the services of Lady Huiwan. The guard informed them that Lady Huiwan was busy, but suggested an alternative service. Introducing another lady, he emphasized her youth and skill in playing the zither. Despite the suggestion, they insisted on Lady Huiwan and declined other options. The guard, acknowledging his lowly status, expressed his inability to change the situation. Angrily, one of the senior brothers confronted the guard, questioning if he knew who they were. The guard immediately apologized and assured them that Lady Huiwan would attend to them. As a gesture of apology, the guard offered a bottle of white sorghum liquor to ease their anger while they waited for Lady Huiwan. Agreeing to the gesture, one of the senior brothers instructed the guard to be more careful in the future and inquired about Lady Huiwan's arrival time. Lady Huiwan entered gracefully, expressing apologies for the delay. The senior brothers praised Lady Huiwan, addressing her with beautiful names. Zhang observed the lady and couldn't deny her beauty. Reflecting, Zhang acknowledged that she could captivate a young man's heart, but as Dongfang Bubai, she wouldn't win his. Lady Huiwan thanked the young masters for choosing her and asked them which song they wanted to hear. One of the senior brothers requested she play Unsullied. She agreed, taking a seat and skillfully playing the zither as they admired her. After the performance, they praised her and complimented the melody created by her skilled fingers. She expressed gratitude for their kind words, bowing to them and appreciating their high regard for her skills. Lady Huiwan acknowledged that Unsullied was not a song for mere enjoyment, and its origin was scary but out of ignorance. People don't know much about it. Choosing to let them revel in ignorance, she allowed them to enjoy the moment, though it carried an undertone of pity for her hidden truth. The scene of people reveling and toasting without a clue about the Unsullied origin was undeniably pitiful. In response to their request, she graciously agreed to play another song. Their next ask was for her to perform the enchanting 9 songs on the journey to heaven. Zhang, however, interrupted, expressing his desire for a specific song, creating an air of mystery and heightened anticipation. Zhang's senior brother scolded him for being rude, pointing out that he had cut in line. Responding to Zhang's request, the young lady inquired about a past love letter, introducing a touch of funny and embarrassing intrigue to the evening, while one of his senior brother also made fun of him during that situation. The young lady asked Zhang what song he would love to hear. She was eager to know the song he wanted to hear, thinking he would request for a mere love song. But his next response shocked her because she had not expected him to request that. The Night on Mount Guangling. She told him that Night on Mount Guangling was not suitable for the night and it would ruin his mood, but he insisted he wanted to hear that. The Night on Mount Guangling, a song laden with emotion and historical resonance, setting the stage for a captivating musical experience. He asked her if she didn't feel confident playing the song. She took that as a challenge and decided to play it. Initially hesitant, the young lady, discerning the profound essence of the music, felt discomfort about revealing its depth. As she was about to play the song, someone interrupted them by breaking the door. Angrily, the person demanded to know who had stolen Lady Huiwan from him. The senior brothers were angered by the sudden intrusion and disrespectful manner in which the person spoke to Lady Huiwan. The irate individual picked up a vase, smashing it on the ground, and threatened to destroy the family of anyone who had cut in line. One of the senior brothers attempted to calm him down, speculating that he might have been a previous customer. He acknowledged any mistake and asked if it was acceptable for him to join them. Ignoring the attempt to defuse the situation, the person angrily launched an attack, causing one of the senior brothers to crash to the ground. Another senior brother, frustrated, admonished him, stating that regardless of any wrongs, they had already apologized, and resorting to physical violence was unnecessary. The person retorted, questioning how they dared to speak to him like that, revealing himself as the son of the imperial counselor. When one of the senior brothers heard that the imperial counselor's son was present, he realized that this was the individual rumored to have received the emperor's greatest favor and single-handedly controlled the country's politics. Upon learning who his father was, the senior brothers were shocked and immediately asked him for his name. Boldly, he declared himself as the third son of the imperial counselor, revealing his name as Hu Buhai. Realizing his identity, they understood that he was the infamous playboy known throughout the world. Despite being attacked first, the non-aggression pact between the government and the Murim wouldn't protect them, given their status as a third-rate sect. The defeat of one of them in a single hit made it clear that there was nothing they could do in response. Dismissing them as pathetic, Hu Buhai scornfully remarked that they had frozen upon hearing his name. He then turned his attention to Lady Huiyuan. The courtesian holding her chin, he raised her head up to look at him, while also instructing her to leave the insignificant individuals behind and accompany him to his room. The courtesan was powerless. She had no other option than to follow Hu Buhai. But before they could depart, Zhang intervened, requesting them to leave the situation as it was. However, one of Zhang's senior brothers prevented Zhang from intervening, placing a hand on his shoulder and allowing Hu Buhai to take Lady Huiyuan with a false smile on his face. Hu Buhai held the struggling courtesan with his hands as she begs him to let her go. He focused on complaining about the young practitioners of a third-rate sect visiting a brothel instead of focusing on their cultivation skills, considering it typical behavior for such a mediocre sect. Zhang boldly confronted Hu Buhai, stating that it wasn't something someone who avoids paying for drinks and was openly hitting a woman would say. Hu Buhai's expression changed, and he was shocked and angered by what Zhang said to him. No one had ever talked back at him. Zhang reminded him of an old saying about buying a drink before teaching someone a lesson, and suggested that Hu Buhai should pour him a drink if he wouldn't buy any. Hu Buhai's expression turned cold as Zhang looked provocatively and added that if he didn't want to listen to a song, he should leave. Buhai looked mockingly at Zhang and questioned what if he didn't want to do any of the options what he will do. Without waiting for Zhang to answer, he attacked him with his martial art. One of Zhang's senior brothers emphasized that the attack was the Heavenly Thunder Kick, the salient of the kicking technique of the Namgung clan, one of the 5 great clans, and warns Zhang not to receive the attack head-on. Zhang evaded the attack and moved to the back of Hu Buhai. Hu Buhai called Zhang a bastard and attacks him again. While Zhang's senior brother kept talking about the Heavenly Thunder Palm, Zhang remained less concerned. His was thinking his eldest brother was being noisy and disturbing his fight. Zhang believed he could easily subdue Hu Buhai, but since his senior brothers were here, he had to try not making it obvious. He smirked and caught the attack Hu Buhai sent at him with his 2 hands. With a smirk, Zhang commented that it seemed Hu Buhai hadn't mastered the Cloud Thunder Palm yet and called him a brat. Angered by Zhang's comment, Hu Buhai launched more attacks, but Zhang stated that matter how much he tried, the result will not change. Zhang remarked that it appeared the reputation of the Namgung clan had fallen to the ground. Zhang thought the fall of the Namgung clan made sense, seeing that the only thing the elders there knew was acting high and mighty. After giving Hu Buhai a punch, Zhang asked about the current patriarch of the Namgung clan. Hu Buhai was puzzled and wondered why Zhang, a member of a sect, didn't know who the Namgung clan's sect leader was. He noticed that everything about Zhang's demeanor and tone of speech resembled that of an old man, but the face was that of a young man. Hu Buhai considered the possibility of Zhang using the rejuvenation technique to maintain his appearance and was shockingly dumbfounded as his mouth was opened wide because of his thought. Hu Buhai shared the name of the current patriarch, Sir Namgung Zhuang, with Zhang, who made fun of what he heard. The patriarch was his alternate cousin. Zhang laughed when he had the name of the current patriarch, calling the current patriarch a good-for-nothing and expressing disbelief that he held such a position. Hu Buhai became even more curious about which great master Zhang was to be able to call the patriarch of the Namgung clan by his name upon hearing his words. Hu Buhai folds his hands respectfully, calling Zhang senior, further provoking him, especially as Zhang looked younger than Hu Buhai. Hu Buhai accused Zhang of acting like a Taoist, judging from his words and actions, and even referred him as Elder Longshuan of the Wudang sect. Zhang's senior brothers couldn't help but wonder if Hu Buhai had lost his mind and questioned the nature of his statements. They wondered if he mistook Zhang, their youngest junior brother, as the strongest expert of Wudang sect. Zhang became angry when Hu Buhai compared him to Longshuan, whom he considered weak, and shouted angrily at Hu Buhai, while the seniors at the back were stunned and speechless that he still had the mouth to make fuss. Hu Buhai observed Zhang's attire and concluded that he seemed to come from a poor, small sect that he had never heard of. Hu Buhai attacked with full force, intending to teach Zhang a lesson and put him in his place. Zhang watched his attack and noticed that it was the same heavenly thunderpalm, but the inner kui it carried was noticeably bigger than before. Zhang decided to use the zither, a beautifully crafted instrument passed down through generations in his family, to fight against Hu Buhai, who was known for his exceptional martial skills. Hu Buhai, fueled by anger that Zhang left their intense fight to pick up a zither adorned with intricate carvings, launched another ferocious attack, convinced that Zhang was making a mockery of their duel. Lady Huiyuan, an esteemed connoisseur of music and arts, was shocked to hear Zhang skillfully play the zither. She hadn't expected him, known for his prowess in martial arts, to possess such a refined musical talent. Hu Buhai, now extremely agitated, launched yet another relentless attack, vehemently claiming that Zhang wouldn't defeat him with what he considered to be petty musical tricks. Lady Huiyuan, during the chaos of the attack, cried out in concern for her precious musical instrument, a family heirloom with sentimental value. Zhang, with a calm assurance, comforted her, assuring Lady Huiyuan that nothing would happen to the exquisite zither he now used both as a weapon and a tool for artistic expression. Seeing how he was gradually being overpowered, Hu Buhai, in a desperate attempt to understand his mysterious opponent, asked Zhang who he really was. Ignoring Hu Buhai's inquiry, Zhang continued playing the Unsullied, a haunting melody that echoed through the battlefield. After the intense fight, Lady Huiyuan, still in shock and awe, found herself speechless as Zhang, with a calm demeanor, sang a part of the Unsullied that even she, a musical aficionado, didn't know. Zhang, deep in thought about his current condition and the overwhelming challenges he faced, considered the simultaneous performance of both the sound art and zither techniques. Resuming the conversation, Zhang asked Lady Huiyuan, who was still in awe, to play the song he had specifically requested, a piece that held special significance to him. After the fight, they gingerly woke up their senior brother, who, having endured a brutal beating from Hu Buhai, complained about the pain and had to be lightly hit again to fully regain consciousness. Their senior brother, amidst the discomfort, expressed his agony and the need for a moment to recover from the intense battle. Surveying the aftermath of destruction, they collectively decided that it was best to leave the area and spare themselves from hearing any more songs. Zhang, however, disagreed, emphasizing the significant cost of their journey and insisting that he would leave only after listening to the requested song. Reflecting on the counselor's son, they realized he was no ordinary person and had been severely beaten, raising questions about the true nature of their adversary. Zhang, acknowledging their freedom to leave, insisted they could depart if they wished. However, his companions rejected the idea, questioning their pride as men in the face of adversity. Despite facing accusations of being backstabbers, they collectively decided to stay and confront the challenges that lay ahead. Zhang, ever pragmatic, suggested once more that they could leave if they wanted, but his companions, driven by a sense of loyalty and honor, adamantly insisted on staying. Turning to Lady Huiyuan, Zhang requested her to initiate the performance of the song he had requested, eager to experience the melody that held a deep personal significance. Anticipating her question, Lady Huiyuan expressed her curiosity, wanting to ask something before playing the requested song. Zhang, with unwavering determination, insisted that she play first and assured her that questions could be addressed later. Agreeing to Zhang's request, Lady Huiyuan began playing the music, filling the air with the captivating notes of the requested song. As she played, Zhang's mind wandered to when the song was performed on the narrow area of Wuzhang Plains. Night on Mount Guangling was originally a song that highlighted firm and unshakable spirits. Despite being on the verge of collapsing, the performer expressed deep resentment for the cause he never achieved in the end. Zhang interrupted her and told her to stop playing the music. When Zhang interrupted the music, one of his senior brothers asked why he had done that, stating that he was enjoying the song, but Zhang ignored him. After the final notes resonated, Lady Huiyuan, her eyes filled with a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty, asked Zhang if he was dissatisfied with her performance, eagerly awaiting his feedback. However, he maintained a stoic silence, leaving her in suspense. Zhang, breaking the hush that enveloped the air, simply informed her that having absorbed every nuance of her musical rendition, he had decided to depart. There was a deliberate calmness in his demeanor as he spoke, leaving Lady Huiyuan curious about the unspoken thoughts lingering within him. Sensing his imminent departure, Lady Huiyuan hastily intercepted him, an urgency in her voice as she implored him to address the lingering question she had posed earlier. She sought clarity, an understanding of the emotions concealed beneath Zhang's composed exterior. Zhang, turning to face her with a measured gaze, countered her inquiry by asking whether she intended to pose the same question to her master. There was a subtle challenge in his response, inviting her to reflect on the reciprocity of such inquiries. Confounded and rendered momentarily speechless by Zhang's cryptic remark, Lady Huiyuan sought clarification. Her confusion was palpable as she queried what he meant, prompting Zhang to unravel the layers of his enigmatic statement. Zhang explained that a skilled teller knows what kind of fabric to use for his clothing by just touching it. So while experts assess others based on their aura, he asked if music would be any different. He told her that she was trying to cover up the fact that she was completely clueless about the song's intention with her little tricks. Zhang departed in silent mystery, his senior brother in tow, leaving the air pregnant with unspoken depth. Lady Huiyuan, amid fading zither echoes, pondered the enigma that was Zhang. Lost in thought, Lady Huiyuan's musings gravitated toward her master. The enigmatic encounter with Zhang unraveled reflections on martial arts dynamics, loyalty, and the misty uncertainties that lingered in the tranquil aftermath. She knew that he had seen through her and could only wonder who he was. She couldn't believe that she would hear what her master wants to have from a young customer she met at the brothel. She watched as he left the brothel. She compared him now to the last time she met him. He had become a different person completely. And considering how he even mentioned her master's name, she knew that he was aware of her past and origins. As Zhang was on his way back to the sect, he couldn't help but think about the prestigious clan that had produced many outstanding geniuses skilled in sound arts, trap mechanisms, and battle arrays. He didn't know why a daughter of that clan had become a courtesan, and her finger techniques were definitely that of the great Jagal clans. He thought that perhaps she didn't know any martial arts in the first place. Judging from her appearance, she is no doubt Jagal Ji's descendant. He couldn't help but wonder if the only righteous person from the Orthodox sect who kept his promise with him 14 years ago has fallen so low that he had to sell his daughter to a brothel. His senior brothers couldn't help but ask why he had acted like that and gotten mad at her. He told them that he got mad at her because she was tarnishing her clan's reputation, so they were surprised and asked him where she was from. He asked them if they knew the great Jagal clan, one of the greatest 5 clans, the one that was famous for their sound arts. One of his senior brothers was confused and told him that he was saying nonsense. There were no clans with such names among the 5 great clans. Zhang was shocked when he heard that and thought that he was hearing nonsense. His senior brother went on to list out the clans that existed, which are the Namgung Murong clan, Huangbo clan, Tang clan of Sichuan, and the Yue clan of Shanggong. Zhang was shocked when he heard what his senior brother had said, and then asked him how the Jagal clan got replaced. His senior brother, after several thoughts, agreed that there was actually a clan with such name, but they were probably dead. When he heard that they were probably dead, he was shocked and couldn't help but wonder how they could be dead. They had been exterminated, and they were kicked out of the Orthodox sect alliance. He asked why they had been kicked out of the sect, and weren't they an Orthodox sect as well? Then his senior brother told him that those Jagal clan members had colluded with the demonic bastard Dongfang Bubai. He was speechless when he heard what his senior brother said, and then knew that it was because of him that they had turned out that way. Meanwhile, at the reinstating MANHUA sect, Cheongyum decided to sneak into the sect library. As he landed, he still couldn't take his mind off what Lianghu Zhang and the sect had done to him, and he won't forgive them. He walked into the quiet space, reflecting on the past 10 years since he joined the Hua Revival sect to avenge his parents. The memory of Zhang's humiliation burned in his mind, fueling his determination for revenge. Cheongyum scanned the library for any useful information, disregarding the possible consequences of his actions. He scanned the shelves, scattered the uninteresting ones on the ground, and finally found a book that interested him, took it, and flopped in the ground and opened the book. Cheongyum looked through the book, seemingly interested, as he flapped each paragraph, studying what was in it totally immersed. He seems to be looking for something. The pages of the book were all blank. He had never seen a blank manual before. Then he smirked with an evil expression as he realized that he might have stumbled upon a treasure. A moment of revelation struck him, and he thought, this manual might be related to a secret purple dusk divine arts. Cheongyum was convinced that mastering this knowledge would empower him to defeat Zhang. He resolved to take the book without a second thought. As he exited the library with the book, he unexpectedly encountered the eldest brother. Shocked and speechless, Cheongyum faced an unexpected confrontation. Jaseong questioned Cheongyum about his actions in the library, but the latter remained silent, still grappling with the surprise encounter. Overwhelmed by the unexpected confrontation, Cheongyum found himself unable to respond when the eldest brother pressed him for an explanation. The eldest brother urged Cheongyum to be honest about his intentions in the library, seeking to understand the motives behind his actions. In response, Cheongyum angrily retorted that the eldest brother already knew why he was there, emphasizing his determination to become strong through any means necessary. The eldest brother questioned whether Cheongyum had found the answers he sought in the library, expressing concern about the dark path he seemed to be treading. Cheongyum admitted to finding a secret manual and acknowledged the wrongdoing, but before he could elaborate, the eldest brother interrupted him. Jaseong shouted at him, stating that he hasn't come to his sense. Jaseong, frustrated and angered, confronted Cheongyum about his mindset, criticizing his inability to control his violent intent and questioning his chances of success with such a mindset. Unfazed, Cheongyum feigned ignorance and challenged the notion that his mental state was a concern, asserting that the responsibility lay with the instructor and master. The instructor, confused, sought clarification from Cheongyum about the accusations and the issues he was raising. Cheongyum vented his grievances, expressing dissatisfaction with the sect's values and criticizing their emphasis on bloodline over skill. Jaseong, stunned, he questioned Cheongyum on what he meant that they had chosen Zhang. Cheongyum emphasized that he was trying to feign ignorance until the end. Jaeyoung was confused when Cheongyum told him he had given Zhang a secret manual. Cheongyum stated that he knew Jaeyoung did that because Zhang was the son of a hero. Jaeyoung tried to explain, but unwilling to listen to reason, Cheongyum dismissed the attempts to explain, asserting that the revival sect had no moral high ground to criticize other sects. The instructor persisted in trying to reason with Cheongyum, recognizing the ominous shadows that threatened to derail the child's future if left unchecked. Realizing the danger of the dark path Cheongyum was treading, the instructor felt a sense of urgency to intervene before it was too late, and the child's future was irreversibly harmed. Despite the instructor's explanation that his defeat was due to weakness rather than a secret manual, Cheongyum's anger intensified, leading to a physical confrontation between the disciple and the instructor. Ignoring the instructor's pleas to cease the attacks, Cheongyum continued to assault him, driven by a potent and palpable aura of hostility. As the fight unfolded, Cheongyum's aggression heightened, marked by a pervasive sense of killing intent. Amid the skirmish, he vocalized his contributions to the sect, emphasizing the perceived insignificance of the instructor. Voicing his frustration, Cheongyum belittled the instructor, branding him as a mere representative of a declining sect. The instructor, observing the vindictive nature of Cheongyum's punches, realized he was teaching martial arts to someone consumed by anger and a lost sense of purpose. Recognizing the escalating violence, the instructor decided to quell Cheongyum's inner turmoil using his Hua Essence Fist technique. Employing the Hua Essence Fist, the instructor sought to suppress Cheongyum's inner demons and regain control of the situation. Rather than yielding, Cheongyum defiantly declared his resistance, refusing to succumb to the instructor's efforts and harsh words. Unfazed, the instructor responded by launching another attack, challenging Cheongyum to block the incoming strike. Perceiving the enhanced nature of the attack, Cheongyum recognized the use of augmented ki, adding a layer of complexity to the confrontation. Unexpectedly, the eldest brother showcased a formidable technique, leaving Cheongyum surprised and realizing that failing to defend against it could be fatal. Witnessing the attack, Cheongyum was astonished, recognizing it as a powerful move and not an honest, straightforward strike. Subduing Cheongyum with the secret technique 7 Absolute Plum Blossom Sword, the instructor displayed mastery over a potent martial art. Defeated, Cheongyum acknowledged his loss, collapsing as the instructor's technique absorbed the impact of various attacks. After the confrontation, the instructor took the opportunity to explain the dangers of practicing martial arts fueled by anger to Cheongyum. Inquiring why he wasn't killed, Cheongyum questioned the instructor as he knelt battered and injured. The instructor chose not to escalate matters, opting to overlook the incident but assigning Cheongyum a year of wall-facing training as punishment. Surprisingly, as the instructor turned to leave, Cheongyum unexpectedly stabbed him in the chest, shocking both of them. Other disciples on their way back noticed an unusual commotion and discovered that the entire sect was ablaze. Witnessing their sect in flames, the disciples were in disbelief, frozen momentarily before reacting to the alarming situation. Unable to comprehend the situation, the disciples sensed that something terrible had occurred, prompting them to investigate further. Rushing into the sect, they found it engulfed in flames, presenting a challenge to enter. Seniors gave orders to spread out and extinguish the fire, prioritizing the safety of their sect. Zhang received instructions to check on the Azure Cloud Hall and confirm the master's safety, while the others focused on firefighting. Upon reaching the Azure Cloud Hall, Zhang discovered his eldest brother lying in a pool of blood, severely injured. Shocked by the sight, Zhang questioned who had harmed his brother and why their sect was under attack. The instructor, responding to Zhang, revealed that it was an outsider's wrongdoing, reassuring him not to worry. The instructor emphasized to Zhang that he needed to recognize himself as Lianghu Zhang, independent of any heroic lineage or false identities. Advising Zhang to prioritize life over fame and sect loyalty, the instructor stressed the worthlessness of pursuits like MANHUA sect. Concluding, the instructor urged Zhang never to succumb to anger, as it is the swiftest path to losing oneself. So all he has to do is to do what he believes is right. Zhang found it funny that he was still giving his ridiculous teaching in such a situation. He told him to lie down first, let him treat his injuries, but then he realized that he had died. Zhang decided to find out who had done it. He concluded that he was simply doing it to make whoever had done this paid the price of making a mess of the home of the great Him Dongfeng Bubai. Without fear, he decides to use his martial art skill to find out the person. Among all the martial arts, he has this martial art skill is the only one that allows him to examine the target memory through his QI. Then he started getting a grasp of what had happened before he was stabbed. As he was doing that, his QI was gradually dispersing, making it difficult for him to see. After that, he found out who had murdered him, and he was the one behind the fire at the sect and the death of the eldest brother. Immediately, he was done examining him. Zhang was still in shock because of what he saw as he watched the body of his eldest senior brother. They sect founder came back immediately and asked what had happened while he was gone. Zhang told him that the eldest brother had passed away. The sect master could not believe what he heard. He was shocked because he has just been gone for a while. He rushed towards Jia Seyong immediately to confirm if what Zhang had said was the truth, and it was indeed the truth. He couldn't believe that the person lying there was Jia Seyong, and kept on asking who had done that to him, while in tears. Zhang told him that he thinks the eldest brother was murdered. The sect master was confused when he heard that Jia Seyong was murdered. The sect master looked at Zhang with suspicion after he had pointed out some things that could be proof that he was indeed murdered. Zhang pointed at his eldest brother's body and told him to look at the scar on the eldest brother's chest and back. The sect leader opened the eldest brother cloth and stared at the place he was attacked. When he saw the floral-shaped scar, he knew that he had been killed with the Hua Essence Fist. Then his mind got to the fact that the only people in the sect who uses that martial arts skill was him, Jia Seyong, Zhang, and Cheong Yum. And the person that killed him was a Hua Essence Fist user. One of the senior brother horridly defended Zhang by saying that he was with them all day. And then another one of the disciple then made mention of Cheong Yum, whom they haven't seen since a while ago, which goes down to the fact that he was the one that killed the eldest brother and burnt down the sect. Puzzled, one of the senior brothers inquired about how Zhang managed to defeat the eldest brother. Faced with the tragic incident, the group of disciples emphasized that since Cheong Yum was the one who did these, they had to take revenge. They decided that they couldn't linger and must find Cheong Yum to make him pay for killing the eldest brother. Zhang rebuked them, dismissing their plans for revenge and emphasizing that they couldn't defeat someone who had already killed the eldest brother. Reminding them of Cheong Yum's likely use of formidable skills, Zhang cautioned against recklessness that could lead to their demise. The sect master intervened, reprimanding everyone for their disgraceful behavior in the presence of the deceased eldest brother. The sect master emphasized that the assumption of Cheong Yum being the culprit was not confirmed, urging them to focus on holding a funeral first. Deciding to prioritize the funeral over chasing the alleged culprit, the sect master deferred judgment until more details were revealed. Despite the sect's devastation, the funeral for Hua Revival sect's senior disciple, Wei Jiaxiong, commenced without the chance to clean up the burnt-out surroundings. The disciples, unhappy over the loss of the eldest brother, were eager for retribution rather than a funeral. Offering Zhang a glass of wine as a gesture of farewell to his senior brother, the disciples expressed their sorrow. Even in his final moments, the deceased brother's concern for the sect and junior brothers remained evident. Instead of offering the wine to his senior brother, Zhang consumed the wine himself. Observing Zhang's actions, the sect master questioned his behavior, puzzled by the deviation from tradition. Zhang placed the wine cup on the table, stating that he would fulfill his senior brother's revenge officially before offering him wine at his grave. The sect master, understanding Zhang's intentions, approved of the plan, seeing no issue with the altered tradition. As the funeral was ongoing, a disciple rushed in panicking and was shouting out to the master. Halting further discussion, the sect master reminded them to maintain decorum, emphasizing that they were still in the midst of the funeral proceedings. Then, the disciple told him that there were some government troop outside. The government troop stood outside the Manhwa revival sect in their horses. The founder emerged, asserting the Hua revival sect's autonomy under the non-aggression pact with the government, extending beyond their territory to the surrounding area. A sudden interruption disrupted the tense atmosphere, as a soldier fervently accused Liang Huzhang of conspiring against the left Grand Counselor's son, injecting an element of chaos into the unfolding drama. In swift response, a disciple rose to Zhang's defense, vehemently arguing that the altercation constituted a fair duel. The disciple emphasized the instigation of the conflict by Hu Buhai, shifting the narrative away from Zhang being the aggressor. Zhang stepped forward, confirming his involvement in the fight with Hu Buhai and acknowledging himself as the one the soldiers were seeking. Upon the soldier's confirmation of Zhang's identity, he reacted vehemently, cursing Zhang and instructing fellow soldiers to capture him immediately. Unmoved by the soldier's hostile stance, Zhang stood firm, a stoic figure amidst the encircling tension. His unwavering demeanor contrasted sharply with the soldiers, who tightened their formation, uncertain of how to handle the audacious martial artist. Zhang retaliated with curses, questioning the decline of Zhonghu integrity and condemning government officials for engaging in shameless behavior. A soldier, provoked by Zhang's words, stepped forward from behind, instructing others to make way as he confronted Zhang directly. Li Guansum, a young and promising disciple of the Namgung clan and also the leader of the troops sent to arrest Lian Huzhang, became angry and shouted toward Lian Huzhang. He had never seen anyone daring to speak that way toward them, let alone insult their Namgung clan. With anger still blazing due to his senior brother's death, Zhang emphasized that he might have gone deaf. Clearly, it was them who were slandering an innocent person, but lacked shame for doing so. Li Guansum, already annoyed and hearing what Lian Huzhang said, decided to teach him a lesson. He stated that Zhang was arrogant, as he had been informed. He raised his hand to remove his cap from his head and prepared to fight. After removing his cap, he handed it to his companion, arrogantly telling them to step back. He declared a one-on-one duel with Lian Huzhang, while the Hu revival sect disciples and sect leader watched from the farthest side. Zhang stood firmly in the center and looked at him. Li Guansum and Zhang came face to face for the duel. Zhang observed Li Guansum's behavior and guessed that the scoundrel Hu Buhai might have fabricated things. Among the troops, only Li Guansum seemed significant to him. Just as Zhang thought, the government and Murim were under a non-aggression pact. This meant the fight in the Pearl Pourboire Pavilion was a common confrontation among martial artists, with no room for government interference. While watching Li Guansum stretch for the duel, Zhang reflected on the fact that the Namgung clan martial artists were mobilized under the influence of the left Grand Counselor. Unfortunately, these martial clans responded without even knowing who was at fault. Li Guansum looked directly at Zhang, coldly asking if he was a descendant of Manhwa sect. If eyes could kill, he would have stabbed Zhang 1,000 times. However, he had to hold back his killing intent and engage in combat. Zhang made it clear he was a descendant of Manhwa sect, looking directly and coldly at Li Guansum. As sparks flew, the two were ready to strike, but Li Guansum seemed to prefer a war of words, using his mouth to provoke a fight. Li Guansum mocked Manhwa sect, stating that the seniors in their sect were exterminated by the heavenly demon, a single person. In contrast, the seniors of Manhwa sect, numbering in the hundreds, were massacred by that one person. In the verbal sparring, Zhang couldn't be outrun. He called the Namgung clan cowardly, asserting they would have been killed instantly. On the contrary, the Hua revival sect held their ground against Dongfang Bubai. Li Guansum, fueled by anger, gnashed his teeth, looking at Zhang with fury. He called him a sharp-tongued punk while activating his Ki, ready to attack Lian Huzhang. Zhang, being seasoned and much older, couldn't be underestimated. Li Guansum fully activated his Qui, raising his hand and clenching his fist. He used a martial art technique to rush toward Lian Huzhang while roaring, eager to test if Zhang's skills matched his reputation. Li Guansum gathered his kui in his palm, employing the Heavenly Thunder Palm technique to attack Lianhu Zhang, as Zhang anticipated. Lianhu Zhang could efficiently block Li Guansum's attack if he unleashed the Yin Qi technique he had honed through the martial arts of Kongtong sect and Wudong sect. However, using techniques from other sects in public was not an option. Zhang prepared himself for the upcoming attack, contemplating the best technique and martial arts he could use to avoid arousing suspicion from everyone. The Hua Essence Fist was the only acceptable technique Lianhu Zhang could use for the time being. The second and last option remaining was the Plum Blossom technique. Zhang struck a beautiful pose, following the teachings of the Plum Blossom technique. Life energy flowed through him effortlessly, and flower petals scattered and flew around him in an orderly way. The plum blossom can endure the pain of a cold winter, a power to withstand and overcome severe cold. Zhang gathered his ki to activate the plum blossom technique, ready to face Li Guansum in the impending duel. Zhang activated his martial arts, combining the Hua Essence Fist and Plum Blossom together, slashing at Li Guansum in a flash. The technique looked formidable and could threaten any martial artist. The Hua sect disciples were surprised and amazed by the technique Zhang used. They didn't know Zhang was that formidable in combat. It was their first time seeing him use such a technique. However, it seemed like the technique was ineffective against a Namgung clan martial artist, as Li Guansum appeared unhurt and launched a sneak attack. Fortunately, a fellow disciple reminded Zhang, and he turned back to block the attack. Li Guansum struck Zhang with his leg, and Zhang used his hands to receive the attack, coldly gnashing his teeth. Li Guansum wasn't finished. He used his other leg to kick Zhang toward a wall. Li Guansum gathered his ki, clenched his fist, and rushed to smash Zhang, who was leaning on the wall. He mocked Zhang's martial arts as flashy but empty, claiming it only tickled him. Li Guansum activated the Heavenly Thunder Triple Palm, smashing toward Lianhu Zhang, gathering all his energy for a lethal strike. The disciples were stunned by Li Guansum's powerful attack, anxious for Zhang's safety. The sect leader was visibly anxious too, realizing Li Guansum's attack reached the level of a first-rate martial artist. Li Guansum smashed toward Lianhu Zhang, thinking the fight was over. He already considered himself the winner, deeming Zhang doomed to lose. However, he was wrong. Li Guansum's face filled with surprise, as he never expected Zhang to withstand an attack of such magnitude, comparable to a first-rate martial artist. Zhang caught hold of Li Guansum's fist with his two hands, not exerting much force. Not a single injury could be found on Zhang's body as he stood firm to resist Li Guansum's attack. Zhang looked directly at Li Guansum with a mocking expression, as if the play had just begun. To Zhang, Li Guansum's attack was nothing more than a tickle. Li Guansum moved back with speed since Zhang deflected his attack. He was surprised and smirked, thinking that Zhang had many tricks up his sleeve. Li Guansum became enraged, mobilizing the power in his body, preparing to unleash his clan's strongest technique, the explosive Thunder Palm. Zhang already knew he was going to use this technique. It was passed on to only the highest promising young disciples of the Namgung clan. Zhang prepared for the attack, circulating his QE and activating the Hua Essence Fist and Plum Blossom technique. The Hua Revival sect disciples concluded that Zhang wouldn't escape unscathed. The explosive Thunder Palm was a formidable move, unlike the initial attack. The disciples knew the Hua Essence Fist couldn't stop the explosive Thunder Palm, the third and final move of the Heavenly Triple Palm, capable of tearing apart its target as if struck by lightning and thunder. Li Guansum launched his attack, and the disciples anxiously warned Zhang to be careful. Escaping the explosive Thunder Palm wouldn't be easy. Zhang evaded the attack surprisingly, leaving Li Guansum stunned. The explosive Thunder Palm was the Namgung clan's strongest technique, yet Zhang managed to evade it. Li Guansum's face showed astonishment. He never thought someone could evade the Namgung clan's most potent technique. Zhang's dodge broke through the wall he was leaning on. Li Guansum slid forward, clenching his fist with a dark expression. Zhang moved aside, maintaining his stance. Li Guansum, enraged, turned to attack Lianhu Zhang again, roaring angrily. His heart was no longer calm. Li Guansum attacked, and Lianhu Zhang evaded using his Plum Blossom technique, commenting that Li Guansum's technique only scattered the petals of the plum blossom. Zhang swayed and danced in the air, evading Li Guansum's attack. The plum blossom, like its petals, swayed and danced in the air, countering the energy of the storm-like attacks. The disciples exclaimed in surprise as they watched Zhang evade Li Guansum's attack with the plum blossom dance, an evasive maneuver mimicking the petals scattered by the wind. Li Guansum became very enraged, attempting another technique to attack Lianhu Zhang, but Zhang struck him with the Hua Revival Sect's martial arts technique, the Hua Essence Fist. Li Guansum coughed out blood, his eyes popping out, pupils sinking deep inside, as though a boulder had smashed into his body. Zhang sent Li Guansum flying back for some meters. The disciples of the Hua Revival Sect were all jubilant, shouting for Zhang's victory. Although the sect leader was pleased, he controlled the disciples, reminding them to be quiet since they were still mourning their eldest brother. The disciples quieted down, respecting themselves and apologizing to the sect leader for their thoughtlessness. Zhang agreed with the master. They had to get rid of what was disturbing them before sending their big brother off peacefully. The troops were stunned by the way Zhang looked at them, feeling startled, as though they were chickens offered as a sacrifice on an altar. Zhang looked at them with eyes filled with killing intent. They were lucky because of the sect mourning. Otherwise, it would have been a bloodbath today. The troops carried Li Guansum onto the horse, ready to depart from the Manhwa sect. They were all annoyed by what happened to their leader and promised to take revenge. The sect leader and Hua sect disciples watched as the Namgung clan martial artists carried their leader and left the sect. Zhang looked toward the leaving troops in deep thought. Today, he would let it slide, but another time, when they come to touch his home, he will crush them. At the courtyard of the first-ranked left Grand Counselor, Hu Weiyang sat in a chair, laying his hands on the table and writing a resignation letter to the emperor. But suddenly coughed out blood, to think that even writing a letter of resignation to the emperor would take so much toll on his body, first-ranked left Grand Counselor, a position that every official dreams of. But now to him it was just a burden. He just wants to throw everything away and live in seclusion. But he didn't know if the emperor, known for his cruelty and manipulation, will grant him earnest his request. Just as he was writing, someone knocked at the door and came in. It was the main leader who went together with the other troops to arrest Zhang. He greeted the counselor and narrated what happened when they went to arrest Zhang. He submitted the evidence he found, which showed that it was Hu Buhai, the son of the counselor, who was at fault, not Zhang. It was the testimony written by the courtesan involved in the incident. Hu Weiyang collected it and looked through to see what the courtesan who was involved said, and found out it was true. His son was at fault. Hu Weiyang blamed himself for his son's bad behavior, claiming he didn't train his son in the right way. He felt like he didn't give his son the attention and love when he needed it. His right-hand man rejected that notion. It wasn't the counselor's fault. His other sons grew up splendidly, but only his last son acted differently. The counselor didn't want to hear those comforting words, but deep down, he knew it was true. However, the case had already been mentioned in court today, and the right counselor made it sound like he was the one who instigated it. Hu Weiyang's right-hand man planned to take care of whoever framed his master, but was stopped by Weiyang. He didn't want to be called a thug. He plans to request his resignation as soon as possible from the emperor, so that the attack from his rivals won't last long either, but his right-hand man didn't seem to support that. Hu Weiyang slumped at his seat tiredly and took a breath. He didn't have the strength left to withstand any more slander, while his right-hand man tried to comfort him. Hu Weiyang's right-hand man emphasized that Zhang was the one who snatched the courtesan from their young master, but Weiyang didn't want to say more about this matter since his son did many other bad things. Since Zhang's behavior was amiable to Weiyang's right-hand man, he decided to speak politely to Lianhu Zhang so that he would comply with them. The next step was to decide who would be the judge. Hu Weiyang couldn't act as the judge. Otherwise, people would gossip. So, the best option was through the Court of Judicial Review, with Lan Yu as the judge. Weiyang's right-hand man supported his decision and decided to go visit Sir Lan Yu. He also told the counselor Lianhu Zhang's name since the counselor asked him about it. Hu Weiyang was stunned because that could only mean that the successor of the Hua Revival sect, who was said to have disappeared a long time ago, has been found. Zhang, who was leaning on a tree cultivating, was currently not happy, clenching his fist as he remembered what Li Guansum said about his technique. Li Guansum mocked his technique as flashy on the outside, but empty on the inside. He knew these mockery was aimed at the Manhwa sect, but couldn't help feel that it was also aimed at him. So to get stronger, he have to retrieve that book, the Sunflower Manual, an absolute demonic art that ignore compatibility and allow it user to advance, retreat, attack, or defend at will. But in order to reclaim his past glory, Lian Huzheng must remaster the Sunflower Manual. But the real problem is, if he wants to learn the Sunflower Manual, he has to be castrated again. Lian Huzheng didn't want to be in a haste to make a decision, although the Sunflower Manual is powerful, but only him can master it. And since it has been a long time, the Sunflower Manual is as good as lost. So Zhang decided to concentrate on memorizing the Sunflower Manual chants. But he couldn't remember it from the snow-white divine art that he urgently needed during the last fire to the MANHUA sect's ultimate technique. Purple Dusk divine art that he stole to Wudang sect's strongest sword technique. Taiji wisdom sword he could recall, but the Sunflower Manual he felt as though it vanished from his head. Lian Huzheng felt frustrated and knelt on the ground. He could vividly recall the detailed principles and movement of the other techniques he stole from other sect, but can't remember the Sunflower Manual chants. He felt as though someone forcefully dug through his skull and took it out. Just then, one of his senior brother came towards him surprised and confused, asking him why he was knelling down. Zhang looked up and called out to his senior brother Yun. Senior brother Yun told him the sect master was looking for him. Zhang's face was confused. He couldn't think of a reason why the sect master would look for him. The tent was the temporary residence of the sect leader No Sayeom. Since the sect courtyard residence was destroyed, the sect leader and his disciples have to make a temporary residence till it is repaired. Inside the tent, Zhang greets the sect leader and asks why he was called over. The sect leader told Zhang he wanted to ask for a favor from him. Zhang emphasized to the sect leader that if it is something he could do for the sect, his master should give him an order, and he will do it. The sect leader gave Zhang an official order. As the sect leader of the Hua Revival sect, he now appoints Zhang as a new instructor of the Hua Revival sect. Lian Huzheng stood firmly as he listens to the sect leader's order. He didn't reject it, or immediately became happy as others would have been. He knew that the position of an instructor can't be left vacant since the eldest brother is dead, so accepted it. Just then, a disciple came to inform the sect leader that someone was looking for him. The sect leader asked him who the guest was, but the disciple replied he didn't know. The disciple mentioned that the man seems polite, so the sect leader told him to let the guest in. The disciple went out to invite the guest in. The man in black and red military attire was led into the tent by the disciple, who stood aside, opening the tent politely to let him in, while smiling at him. When the man in black and red military attire was led into the tent, the sect leader greeted him with polite respectfully and introduced himself to him. The man in black and red military attire also greeted sect leader No Sayeom politely and introduced himself as Ying, the subordinate of the Left Grand Counselor. Sect leader No Sayeom was stunned that the man was the subordinate of Left Grand Counselor and inquired to make sure he didn't hear wrong. Yi Ying informed sect leader No Sayeom that the Left Grand Counselor would like to meet young Master Lian Huzheng, which he said politely. Lian Huzheng was stunned as he looked toward Yi Ying with his mouth slit open. Yi Ying pleased that he comes with him to the imperial capital. Sect leader No Sayeom looked at Yi Ying with cold face, obviously no longer happy. If it was about the incident that happened, it has already been settled how martial artists should sort it. No Sayeom folds his hands together and politely rejects Yi Ying's offer. The sect just currently suffered from a horrible fire, so he wants to settle these problems first. Yi Ying knew the sect leader suspected, but he had no other choice but to tell them his master needed a witness. His master was in a political predicament due to the continuous disgraceful behavior of the third young master. Sect leader No Sayeom wanted to continue rejecting Yi Ying, but Zhang stopped him. The sect leader can't continue rejecting Yi Ying. It will look bad, since they have been persuaded many times by Yi Ying. Lian Huzheng agreed to go with Yi Ying to the imperial capital as a witness, and also to prove that he was not guilty of any crime. Sect leader No Sayeom frowns in deep thought. Their opponent was the Left Grand Counselor, so instead of continue rejecting his offer, it won't hurt to establish a connection with the imperial family. Zhang packed up a little bit of the things he might need as his master escorted him outside, advising him to be careful and bade him farewell. Zhang entered the carriage and sat down facing Yi Ying. As the carriage gallops through the road, the carriage had 3 horses, which seems to be the best in Tianzhu. But Zhang wasn't enjoying the ride. He was annoyed by the continuous bumps and slowness of the carriage in the road. He asked Yi Ying why they had to sit in this. Yi Ying already labeled Zhang as a countryside bumpkin and slowly explained that this was an express carriage and the one they are riding on is pulled by the 4 best horse of Tianzhu. Zhang didn't care about Tianzhu horse but only asked provocatively why he would be in the same carriage as Yi Ying. It would be better to ride a horse which is much faster and get to the capital soon. Yi Ying not seriously asked Zhang if he was good at riding horse since he spoke in that manner. Zhang arrogantly told him he was even better than him in horse riding. Ying was angry. If it wasn't because of his master's order to bring Zhang back safely, he would have sent him to the court of judicial review and gotten rid of him a long time ago. Suddenly, the carriage shakes and both Zhang and Ying almost fell out of their seat, but hurriedly stabilized themselves. Ying looked out and asked the rider why the carriage was shaking, but was startled when he saw an arrow embedded in the neck of the carriage rider. In few minutes, the horse separated from each other, and the wheel of the carriage hit a rock, turning it upside down, while the rider fell off the carriage. The carriage fell, and some of its will separated from its body. Ying inside the carriage broke the door angrily, sending it flying, and jumped out. Ying jumped out enraged and asked which bastard deer to crash the carriage, but was interrupted by the attack sent next toward him. 4 arrows with shape edge swished toward Ying in a fast pace. Each arrow had a blue stripe at the bottom. Ying used his sword to slice the arrows coming towards him into pieces with fast speed, while evading the piece that flew toward him. Ying looked down inside the carriage while thinking of the feather saw in the arrows. That was the blue feathered arrow. He was wondering if it was the doing of the Green Forest stronghold and why bandits were close to the imperial capital. Ying stretches his hand toward Zhang, trying to pull him out of the carriage, but Zhang just kept looking at him crazily without moving, and his fist clenched as he stood inside the carriage. Ying became enraged and shouted toward Zhang. He was trying to help Zhang, but Zhang isn't responding to him. The situation was urgent since they had been attacked by bandits. Zhang looked at him suspiciously, while implying that it might be his evil plan to kill and silence him and use the bandits as an excuses. Ying was angrily slashing the arrows fired at him while shouting at Zhang. He was trying his best to block the attack. Ying, standing at the top of the carriage, looked over at his front and saw some bandits in dark indigo and green attire wearing face masks rushing towards him. Ying gracefully leaped from the wreckage of the shattered carriage, his movements fluid and purposeful. With unwavering determination, he sprinted towards the oncoming bandits, prepared to engage in a fierce confrontation. Ying slashed his sword at one of the bandit, and the bandit blocked the attack using his sword. Ying only had one thing in mind. With the honor of his master, he must defeat them. Ying clenched his other fist and slashed the bandit, cutting his sword into 2 and defeating him at once. Ying was able to cut the bandit's sword because he clad his sword with ki. Zhang, who was still hiding inside the carriage, was amazed that Ying was able to clad his sword with ki when fighting, and judged him as not bad in fighting. Zhang watches as Ying sliced of one of the bandits' head as sparks flew everywhere, and the body of the bandit fell helplessly with no strength. Zhang climbed and sat at the top of the carriage watching the fight while thinking about the technique Ying was using. That must be the great Namgung clan Heaven Defiance sword. One if the bandit rushed toward Ying, jumping and raising his sword to cut down on Ying, while the others surrounded him. Ying got ready to pull out his sword. He mobilized his power and slashed them all at once, ending their lives with only one move to show how strong he was. He can't be played with. Zhang was stunned and realized that Ying was using a blade, not a sword, and the attack he just made was called the Japanese's blade unsheathing art. Zhang's fascination with Ying deepened as the latter swiftly eliminated another bandit with a single lethal slash. In the midst of the chaos, Ying's proficiency in combat drew Zhang's keen interest. Maintaining an unwavering gaze, Ying stood with an air of confidence, almost as if he found amusement in toying with his adversaries. The firm expression on his face hinted at a deeper understanding, suggesting that he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The boss of the bandit was no longer happy, but he had a calm look on his face as though it wasn't his men been killed. He claimed he will be the one to take Ying's life. Ying rushed toward the boss and was injured by him. Ying was helpless since he knew he wasn't the boss match. He was pushed back and knelt down due to the attack of the boss. The boss almost took his life, but was saved by Zhang, who kicked the bandit boss, making him move back. The boss didn't like Zhang interrupting him and told him to sit aside as a kid. Later, he will take care of him. Zhang's face darkened and he clenched his fist, attacking the bandit boss. Infuriated, Zhang charged towards the bandit boss, swiftly revealing the revelation that he hailed from the Green Forest stronghold. His annoyance fueled his actions, and the atmosphere crackled with the brewing tension of an impending confrontation. The bandit boss, consumed by fury after Zhang exposed his identity, raised his sword menacingly, eager to eliminate Zhang decisively. The air crackled with tension as the confrontation escalated, promising a fierce clash between the determined martial artist and the vengeful bandit leader. But Zhang was faster than him. He attacked the bandit boss on his stomach with clenched fist filled with force, making the bandit boss attack deflected. The bandit boss was sent flying by Zhang's attack, but was lucky and stabbed his sword into the ground, reducing the force of the attack he received while clenching his stomach in pain. The bandit boss was surprised that Zhang could defeat him with just only one move and couldn't help but ask Zhang who he was while clenching his teeth and stabilizing himself using his sword. Zhang, of course, answered him as being the elder who will let him smell plum blossom. Zhang walked towards the bandit leader, asking him who was behind the ambush. The bandit boss didn't want answer, so he tried to escape while throwing something towards Zhang and Yi Ying. It was a smoke bomb, Ying warned Zhang while closing his nose with his hand. Zhang rushed out from the smoke bomb, leaving Ying, who was still covering his nose, behind. Zhang chased after the bandits who rushed into the bush trying to escape. Zhang killed the bandits in the back while moving toward the boss. He was scared and asked his follower to fight Zhang while escaping. Zhang slashed the person the bandit leader sent to stop him into two and jumping up towards the bandit leader. He caught the leader and told him he should not have messed with him. Zhang killed the bandit's leader when he got the answer he wanted. When he came, he asked Yi Ying what trick his master was playing by calling him to Nanjing. Yi Ying became angry, claiming that his master was a wise and virtuous man who selflessly strives to serve the nation, and pointed to the fact that he won't tolerate anyone insulting his master. Zhang was not happy and attacks Ying, emphasizing he could do anything for his master. Ying asked Zhang to calm down and not jump into conclusion. Zhang then revealed the fact that he knew Ying came together with the bastards from Namgung clan the last time they came to arrest him, but was hiding and asked him what he was scheming. Ying told Zhang he was sorry about the last time, that at first he was going to send him to the court of judicial review and report him, but his master told him to politely bring Zhang to him. Zhang released him while mentioning the fact that Ying was still trying to save the face of his master, even when he was about to die. Despite being a Japanese, he was quite loyal. Ying was surprised that Zhang knew he was Japanese and asked him how he found out. Zhang told him he could tell from the moment he looked at him. In fact, Zhang already knew who was behind the ambush. The bandit who appeared near the imperial capital couldn't be simple robbers, which means they were instigated by someone influential in the palace. Zhang thought carefully while patting the horse. The person named Wang or something seems to be jealous of Hu Weiyang. But the problem is that this person was also trying to kill him. Zhang thought while mounting the horse, if it was him from his past life, he would have killed the 3 generations of Wang's clan. Zhang calls Ying to mount his horse so they can continue the journey. Zhang gallops his horse forward excitedly, having in mind that this was the last time he would let them off. If there is a next time, he will kill them all. Ying calls him to wait for him. At the entrance of the imperial palace, Ying and Zhang had to get off their horse and other to enter the imperial palace. The guards stationed stood firm with their spear. Ying took Zhang to one of the courtyard and showed him to a room, telling him not to come out because the imperial palace was filled with high-ranking officials and to refrain from acting up. Ying left and closed the door, looking at Zhang as though he dropped the burden that had been killing him, while Zhang looked around the library. Zhang went toward the bookshelves looking through it, but couldn't find any reasonable book there. It was only filled with poem, calligraphy, but no military or martial arts book. If it was back then, the library in Dadu had useful books in it, such as the Sunflower Manual. Even the size of these library is not even half that of Dadu. Zhang complained that Zhu Yuanzong, the conqueror of Dadu, didn't have good eyes for better things. Fortunately, they didn't get right of the Sunflower Manual when they ran away from Dadu Palace. It would be great if he could get his hand on the Sunflower Manual. Just then, someone opened the door to the library and came in. Zhang subconsciously looked back and asked who came in to know who came into the library. It turned out to be the left Grand Counselor Hu Weiyang who came in. Zhang greeted him respectfully. He introduced himself and apologized to Zhang for the trouble his son has caused him. The left Grand Counselor went straight to the point, telling Zhang he had a request he wanted to ask from him, since the hearing will begin soon, and before the ministers to determine the full account of the past. Zhang already knew that left Grand Counselor had a motive for making him come from Manhua sect to the imperial palace and wanted to know what it was. Hu Weiyang requested that Zhang should testify before the ministers about his son's wrongdoing without adding or concealing anything. Zhang didn't understand what Hu Weiyang meant. Zhang, wearing a pensive expression, suspected that Hu Weiyang might be attempting to coerce him into alignment with his narrative. Aware of political maneuvers, Zhang remained cautious, questioning the Grand Counselor's motives and pondering the potential implications of such an unexpected revelation. Hu Weiyang explained that his actions were a form of penance for his failure in overseeing his clan's affairs. Despite holding a prestigious position, he acknowledged his shortcomings in maintaining order within his own family. Zhang furrowed his brow, scrutinizing Hu Weiyang for sincerity. The idea of a man disinterested in power puzzled him. Hu Weiyang told Zhang he was planning on resigning from his position as the left Grand Counselor, and Zhang was curious on why he wanted to do so. Hu Weiyang likes talking with honest people like Zhang. He knew what Zhang was thinking from his expression. He just wanted Zhang to know there was nothing good if he get involved with the old man's affair. Zhang, grappling with the undeniable truth presented by Hu Weiyang, harbored a lingering curiosity about the left Grand Counselor's unexpected leniency. Hu Weiyang turned and quietly starts walking out of Zhang's room while emphasizing that it won't be good if he is seen talking to him for too long. Zhang looked towards Hu Weiyang, who was letting go of power and authority easily. Not many people can do so, and Hu Weiyang seemed sincere about it. But Zhang became confused, although he planned to tell the truth. But now that Hu Weiyang said this, he felt as though he was playing at his palm of his hand. Just then, a eunuch with big belly came in with a fake funny look on his face, asking Zhang if he was the witness who came from Manhwa revival sect. Zhang was disgusted and confused about who this fatty eunuch that just came in was, and answered him that he was the one the eunuch was speaking of. The eunuch smiles falsely and moved toward Zhang with his fat body, stating that he was there for a proposal, while Zhang tries to push him away from himself. The eunuch smiles at Zhang and told him that as long as he confessed his crime, he would be generously rewarded and also receive some gold ingot and silver. Zhang just quietly watched him blabbing stupidly while thinking about who might have sent the idiot to come and bribe him. Now when he thinks about the bandits, he feels like a complex power struggle is happening in the palace. After speaking for too long, the eunuch was losing his patience and asked Zhang why he wasn't answering him, or if he was deaf and didn't hear him. His smiles were slowly fading. Zhang mocked him when he said the reward was only 100 ingot of gold and silver, making jest of him as a newly castrated eunuch who didn't know his job. The eunuch was stunned and instantly angry, and his smile faded completely. Zhang held him on his collar, wanting to ask him a question, but the eunuch was already fully enraged. He angrily attacked Lianhu Zhang, boasting that Zhang didn't know who he was. That was why he spoke that way toward him. He must teach him a lesson. The eunuch became enraged because of Zhang's word, and tried to bully him into submission with power, but didn't know he has chosen the wrong person to approach, and Zhang watches him use his martial art to attack him, staring at him funnily. Zhang looked at him in a provocative manner and used his kuyi to reflect the attack, causing the eunuch to get backfired by his own attack. Zhang then used martial art to hit his acupuncture points, sealing his internal power and rendering the eunuch weak and powerless. The eunuch was surprised that he knew many techniques and exclaimed why Zhang was this strong when he doesn't even look 20, and wanted to know who this young man was. The eunuch was terrified when he thought of something and exclaimed, "Rejuvenation technique." He knelt down and asked Zhang to spare him, and he will give him as much money as he want. Zhang looked at him coldly and told him he can have money whenever he want, and demanded for something martial artists desire, asking him to bring out the martial arts technique. Lianhu Zhang looked at the eunuch and asked if there was a secret storage imperial palace, and the eunuch replied that there really was a secret storage here. Zhang told him that if he want to live, he should get the sunflower secret manual for him. If not, by 4 hours he will die. The eunuch replied he will get it and ran out. The sunflower manual was the only manual that vanished from his mind, as though he never learned it. He must get it if he wants to become stronger. But it seems like our Lianhu Zhang is already missing his thing even before he found the manual. There is no other way to become strong as he was in his past life, so he has to remove his Tintin to regain the absolute power he had in his past life. Just then the people asked to escort him came in to see him touching and looking at his Tintin, and there were disgusted, looking at him like a pervert ready to slice him. He was dumbfounded since he didn't know people will see him in these type of situation. The eunuch told them no to overreact. A man is not forbidden from looking at his own thing, but he kept a distance from Zhang, obviously disgusted, but still kept his cool. The eunuch asked Zhang if he was the one who arrived from the Hua revival sect. Zhang raised his hand to confirm and moved closer to the eunuch, but was asked to put his hands down and stand where he was, since the eunuch was feeling disgusted and goosebumps because of what he saw. The eunuch told Zhang where they're to escort him to the court. He should live whatever he was doing and follow them. But Lianhu was trying to clarify that what they saw was a misunderstanding. But it seems the three didn't care to listen to him and asked him to follow them from a distance. In the Grand Hall of Justice, the solemn proceedings for the left Grand Counselor, Hu Weiyong, unfolded with meticulous gravity. The air was laden with tension as the judiciary prepared to unravel the intricacies of a case that had sent ripples through the corridors of power. The guard were asked to call in the witness, and everyone is asked to take a seat by the first-rank senior, Wang Guanyang, as he sat in the center of the group of counselor. Wang Guanyang. The right-hand counselor asked Hu Weiyong if he had anything to say before the witness arrived, while looking down at him with contempt. Hu Weiyong closed his eyes and looked down, answering the right-hand counselor. He has nothing to say in regards to the fault caused by his offspring. Hu Weiyong humbly stated he is willing to accept outcome of the hearing. Wang Guanyang was angered by what Weiyong said and coursed deeply in his heart, although he has the opportunity to seize power and struck him to death. But it seems like the emperor won't let that happen and is covering up the issue in order to protect Hu Weiyong. But this time, he already bribed the witness through a eunuch to make him confess his guilt. Lian Huzhong stood as the witness in front of the court officials, looking straight at Wang Guanyang, as the guard who brought him in introduced him to the counselor. Then, the hearing of the witness Lian Huzhong began. Wang Guanyang looked toward Zhang and asked him if he knew who the man he and his fellow disciples had an argument with at a place called the Pearl Pourboire Pavilion really is. Zhang replied that he knew. The other party introduced himself as Hu Buhai, the son of left Grand Counselor. Once being finished speaking, the hall became noisy, and the court officials began murmuring toward each other regarding the argument. Wang Guanyang tried to shut them up, but deep down, he was already feeling happy. He felt as though he already won the fight, but didn't know something big was still coming his way. The pride of a tiger is its claw and teeth. If he loses his teeth or claw, he has fallen. Wang Guanyang looked down at Zhang, obviously happy, although he didn't show it in his face, but he didn't know there was nothing overlooked by our dear Lian Huzhong. He looked at Zhang after his mind has calmed down, still thinking that the play was unfolding very well. Wang Guanyang looked down at Zhang and thinks he admit to his guilt, but in the same way Zhang was also looking at him. Wang Guanyang might think that it was his victory, but in reality, it was the opposite. He didn't know that increased resentment towards the left Grand Counselor will lead to his own desperate downfall. Zhang continued narrating what happened. He told them the person named Hu Buhai, without inquiry about right and wrong, stormed into the room they're rented. Wang Guanyang wanted to speak up and make things worse, but was stunned and surprised by what Zhang said and immediately asked him to repeat what he said. Zhang made it obvious that they apologized for taking a courtesan away from him and sought reconciliation. Hu Buhai nonetheless ignored Zhang and his fellow disciples' suggestion and knocked out one of his companions, and even tried to drag the courtesan out and molest her, so Zhang and his fellow disciples had no other choice but to fight it out. And after Zhang and his fellow disciples went back to the Hua revival sect, the army was led toward them, and a fight began. So that how it happened. As the play unfolds, Wang Guanyang became restless and interrupted Zhang from speaking, asking him if his words were true. Zhang answered him, telling him his words are nothing but truth, and they can be confirmed by many others who were there besides him. Wang Guanyang asked, aren't all of the people there his fellow disciples, and if their word can be trusted? Zhang replied that the workers at the brothel were present when it happened. Before Wang Guanyang could utter another word, Hu Weiyong interrupted him. Hu Weiyong didn't want the argument to go on, so they spoke in a refined manners, insisting that being born as a virtuous man, one need to cultivate their morals and regulate the family before governing the country and bringing peace to the world. Hu Weiyong states that he was stupid and foolish, and unable to even cultivate his moral, so he will resign from his position as Grand Counselor, but was interrupted by Wang Guanyang not to speak further, but turned a deaf ear and continued speaking. In front of everyone, left-hand Grand Counselor Hu Weiyong appealed to step down from his position to stone for his offspring's sin. He informed them he already submitted his resignation letter to the emperor prior to attending the hearing. Wang Guanyang was very angry when he had what Hu Weiyong said and thought about how many steps ahead Weiyong predicted before these. Hu Weiyong really outsmarted Wang Guanyang again, and Wang couldn't do anything but watch it happen. Wang Guanyang became scared and started thinking about what will happen if the emperor find out the truth. The sin of not fulfilling an order is disloyalty suddenly. And he turned out to be disloyal? He glared at Zheng and blamed him for it. He will definitely make these bastards regret it. Wang watches coldly with anger as Hu Weiyong and Zheng left respectively for their courtyard, coursing them in his heart thousands of times, while Zheng and Hu Weiyong left not caring about what the other officials thought. At home, Zheng relaxed and balanced in his chair, feeling tired as though he ran marathon, and laments how tough it was, just like when he was in Dadu. They find all sort of excuses just to run their mouth, but in reality are like tepid coyotes at the two entrances. Zhang fell into thought. Even though another dynasty is now ruling the empire, nothing really changes after all. Just then, the eunuch who came to bribe early when he entered the palace rushed into the courtyard and opened the door that closed it behind him. Shouting as though his life depends on it, the fatty eunuch ran inside shouting, "Young master am back, even his voice can wake up a bat." Zhang reflexively turned toward the fat eunuch, expecting the news of the secret manual. He asked the eunuch where the sunflower manual was, but was given an unexpected answer. The eunuch replied that he didn't see any technique starting with sun in the secret storage before talking of sunflower manual. Zhang was outraged because of what the eunuch said, and threw his teacup toward the eunuch, who was scared off and related that there were 3 volumes of Sunflower Yang's private life. But there was nothing like the sunflower manual. Zhang was surprised because of what the eunuch said. He thought that maybe the eunuch was playing prank with him or trying to deceive him. Then if so, he will force it out from him? Zhang glared angrily at the stupid fat eunuch sitting in the ground. The eunuch spoke and reminded Zhang he said he will spear him, and Zhang looked towards him. The eunuch can't be lying after experiencing so much pain. Zhang turned his back to the eunuch, who was still putting on a fake smile and sweating. If the manual can't be found in the secret storage, that means the sunflower manual might still be in the original place. Everything had been sorted. Zhang was determined to sneak into the imperial palace in Dadu just once to get the sunflower manual. Zhang was afraid the manual would have been discarded a long time ago, resulting in him not being able to learn the sunflower manual technique again. The fatty eunuch acted cute in front of Lianhu Zhang, raising his left hand and touching his cheek as though he was a puppy waiting for its master to pet it. Zhang was already overly disgusted by the fatty. He raised his hand and hit the eunuch face hard so that his cheek shifted due to the pressure. Zhang was already fed up with the thought of the sunflower manual, but the eunuch just kept making him want to throw up. The eunuch fell to the ground and begged Zhang to release him very passionately, but Zhang's eye caught sight of something that fell of the fatty eunuch body. It was martial arts book. He took it happily, turned and snuck it into his robe, and left the fatty eunuch, who was still laying in the ground as though he was already dead. Shortly near the cold palace, some search party were looking for Chamberlain Zhou. The Chamberlain Zhou was exactly the fatty eunuch, who is currently hiding in a room inside the cold palace. The eunuch was running for his life. Whoever fails to fulfill the emperor's will is destined to die. He had no choice but to escape the imperial palace and go into hiding. The place he is hiding is a place he chooses a long time ago. The eunuch had high hope that no one will find him, but it was wrong. Not long after he thought that way, the door to his room was opened, and the imperial eunuch Hyangyan came in. The fatty eunuch was startled and frightened as well. He didn't know he would face his demises not long after he thought he was safe, and the person who found him was the emperor's eunuch. The emperor's eunuch told fatty eunuch the emperor was looking for him, when the fatty eunuch heard that he was scared and started quivering from head to toes. The emperor's eunuch told him that if he didn't come with him, he would use force, but fatty was so scared to go with him, so the head eunuch Hyangyan knocked him out. The head eunuch Hyangyan carried fatty eunuch on his shoulder as though he wasn't heavy and walked towards the emperor's chamber. The servant opened the door as he walked into the emperor's room. Entering the emperor's chamber, the head eunuch dropped fatty eunuch on the ground near him, knelt down, bowed, and greeted the emperor. The emperor asked if he made fatty unconscious. He told the emperor he had no choice since fatty didn't comply. The emperor asked him where fatty hid and was told he hid in the cold palace. He was angry, but his face just keeps smiling. This is hungry emperor Zhu Yuanzhang. The crazy emperor told the head eunuch Hyangyan to leave. Fatty eunuch will be taken care of by himself. The head eunuch Hyangyan asked the emperor if he should wake and tie fatty up, but was rejected. The head eunuch Hyangyan received the emperor's command and quietly stood, bowing his head down as he retreated out of the room and closed the door. The crazy emperor squatted down and looked at fatty, who was pretending to be unconscious, and told him he knew he was pretending. The eunuch was startled and stood up. He knew he couldn't escape the king's eyes. The emperor asked him why he disobeyed him, and the eunuch started narrating what happened between Zhang and him to the emperor. He told him that Zhang hid his acupuncture points, rendering him weak. The emperor was suddenly enlightened and thought of something. It seems like the bastards of the Murim never changes. He looked at fatty eunuch with those deep eyes that doesn't have an atom of emotion on it, and comforted him. The fatty eunuch face changed. Tears trickled down from his eyes as he asked for the emperor to spear him. He didn't dare to shout. A man in black who came from nowhere wraps his hand around Fatty's neck. In the next second, Fatty's head was twisted and broken, dangling at the wrong side. His mouth and eyes opened in horror. His hand slightly raised, and he lay directly on the ground lifelessly. The man who took Fatty's life covered his body, bowed to the emperor, then disappeared with Fatty eunuch body in no less than 3 seconds, while the emperor watched the play unfolds without care. The crazy emperor was still smiling as though nothing happened. He was just excited that it has been 14 years since someone came looking for the sunflower manual. Now he wants to meet this person. The crazy emperor ordered that Zhang be brought to him. Zhang was suspicious he was ordered to go over to with a carriage by the emperor's decree for no reason. So when Zhang got there, he was stunned by who he saw. Zhang clenched his fist as he looked at the crazy emperor, Zhu Yuanzong. The cunning emperor, who was one of the biggest obstacle in his past life, was sitting balanced in his throne. Intriguingly, his involvement in this affair signifies a notable shift, suggesting a deeper gravity to the unfolding events. Zhang pretended to know nothing and bowed down, greeting the crazy emperor. The emperor laughed out and spoke, blaming himself for not handling the matter regarding Zhang incident properly. Left Grand Counselor Hu Weiyong tried to stop the emperor from blaming himself, but to blame him since the incident was related to his son. But the emperor stopped him from speaking. The emperor spoke as though he was amiable. He emphasized that awards and penalties should be carried out properly in accordance with the law, since Left Grand Counselor Hu Weiyong has contributed much to their country, even if his son committed some disgraceful deed. The emperor decided to step down and let it be. The crazy emperor made a decree rejecting Left Grand Counselor Hu Weiyong's resignation and redeeming his position as the Left Grand Counselor. The counselor bowed respectfully to the king and accepted the decree. Meanwhile, the crazy emperor didn't forget his act of providing appropriate compensation for Zhang. He bought out a brown martial arts book from his robe, said to be a book mastered by the leader of the demons. The crazy emperor mentioned that the demon leader was known as the heavenly demon, who once greatly disturbed the world in the past, and proclaimed himself the Invincible of the East, and told Zhang he will give him the book. Zhang was stunned. That was the Sunflower Manual. But despite knowing the value of this ultimate martial art, the crazy emperor still wanted to hand it over to him without hesitation. It doesn't seem right. The crazy emperor looked down on Zhang and asked him why he was quite. But deep down, Zhang was thinking that if he was a great martial artist or meritorious retainer of an orthodox sect, he would have bought it. But giving it to him, who was a third-rate country bumpkin, someone summoned here because of an insignificant dogfight, he didn't know just what Zhu Yuanzong, the crazy emperor, was plotting.
Pet the cat.